Why is it shadow fleet? Well, what it's doing is it's suspected of carrying Russian oil, these tankers, and they are part of course, sanctions, so they're not supposed to be doing what they're doing in the areas that they're in, and Ukraine has targeted them as a way of trying to hit Vladimir Putin in his pocket.
And if you wind up returning one of the gifts you get this holiday season, you're not alone. Jenna Jacobson, director of the Retail Leadership Institute at Toronto Metropolitan University, says the returns market continues to grow, and retailers have mixed feelings about that.
They love online shopping because it means that people are able to purchase 24 hours a day rather than being constrained by mall times or store times. But with that comes a lot of costs and challenges, and returns are one of those costs and challenges.
Some returns firms estimate it costs retailers $33 for every item people send back to retailers. That's your 620 CKRM News. Read more stories from around your community and around the province at sasktoday.ca and 620ckrm.com.
And this weather forecast for B&A Petroleum in Swift Current, with multiple locations serving southern Saskatchewan for over 30 years. See B&A Petroleum for all your fuel and propane needs. For tonight, snow flurries and light snow showers up to 2 centimeters, they're saying. Wind out of the west-northwest, up to 45-kilometer gusts, and maybe even getting up to 70 kilometers overnight, a low of minus 23. For Saturday, early flurries, diminishing wind, and mostly sunny, very light wind out of the west-northwest, and a high of minus 20. Saturday, mainly clear, very light wind out of the southeast, low of minus 25. For Sunday, we're looking at mostly sunny, light wind, and a high of minus 12. For Monday, partly sunny, chance of flurries at night, a high of minus 8, and then pretty well the same for Tuesday, partly sunny and a high of minus 10.
B&A Petroleum is a southern Saskatchewan family-owned business that's there for you. They've been supporting their clients for over 30 years with locations in several communities throughout the southern part of the province. B&A Petroleum is available for all your bulk fuel and lubricant needs, with propane at selected locations Monday to Friday. And don't forget, their Cardlock location is accessible 24 hours for your convenience. B&A Petroleum. Fuel you once, fuel you forever.
Broadcasting from Century Studios in downtown Regina, Harvard Media presents The Sportscage, where Saskatchewan comes to talk local sports. Brought to you by Nelson Homes, supplying home packages and RTMs for over 65 years. Be part of the show. Call 1-866-767-0620 or text 306-936-6262. The Sportscage. Streaming at sportscage.com, our YouTube channel, and on the radio at 620 CKRM.
Boy, this is really happening. Welcome to the Friday Sports Cage. I'm your host, Brendan McGuire. This is the first time I've ever done a cage with all these lights everywhere. Dad always told me I had face for radio. Now I know what he meant. So coming up on the program here today, we're going to check in with the University of Regina Rams head coach Mark McConkey. I know he's got a busy off season, see what his plans are over the holidays. Check in with our NHL insider Eric Francis. I want to hear what he thinks about Craig Conroy's contract extension. It seems like they've lowered the bar so low in Alberta you can barely limbo under it anymore. Regina Pats rookie Maddax Schultz, see what he thinks about the first few games that he's had in the Western Hockey League. Figure out what his plans are and what the team's plans are for him for the rest of the year. In Hour 3, we will visit with Three Down Nation's John Hodge. He wants to talk about the salary that Winnipeg's running back Brady Oliveira is going to get and how that has set a new benchmark. And we'll also talk to Dante de Caria, I'd say of the Regina Pats, but also of the Regina Red Sox, because my inbox is constantly being filled with press releases about the Red Sox from Dante himself. And he goes by the nickname Diamond Dante because, whether he admits it or not, he's a baseball guy first. Also on the show, you can chime in on the Prairie Land Rentals text line. Whatever you need to rent to get the job done, Prairie Land Rentals probably has it. Also, an official Husqvarna snow thrower dealer. Deal with the owner directly at 600 Albert Street. And that text line, you can see it on the YouTube feed, 306-936-6262, or if you want to call in, 1-866-767-0620. All guests appearing on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. It's a pizza that's known worldwide for a reason, loaded with toppings of Western Canadian ingredients and always cooked to perfection. I don't know if he's ready just yet, but in moments we will check in with Farhan Lalji of TSN, because I want to talk to him about his NFL reporting, because he does a lot of that this time of year, and also about some of his CFL reporting and what he thinks has been happening with not only the Saskatchewan Roughriders, but the BC Lions. You'll remember Darnell Sankey was the best linebacker the Roughriders had in a very trying season, the last year of Craig Dickinson, and then he flipped over. No, sorry, it was the second last year of Craig Dickinson. Then he flipped over to the Alouettes after a brief stint in the XFL, and I think he was maybe the first guy ever to win an XFL championship as well as a Grey Cup in the same season. So he continued his strong play. He was the odd man out with the Montreal Alouettes just because Machocha decided he wanted to make that a Canadian position instead of an American position, and he's helping his ratio that way. It'll be interesting to see what that means with Marc-Antoine Dequoy.
One of my favorite quotes from that year with Sankey, that last year with Sankey, was, "Water covers 70% of the earth, and the other 30% is covered by Darnell Sankey."
He said that about himself.
No, somebody else in the media did. I completely forget who. But
he could run like a deer, though. Like, he was that good. And he was a lot of fun, too. I just remember the year he came up, he was kind of brash, kind of cocky. But those guys are a lot of fun, too, right? Like, I remember he was going to have a competition with Larry Dean for that linebacker spot, and they ended up being able to keep both of them, and Larry's career didn't go much past that anyways. But I'll be really, really curious to hear what we learn about that whole scene and why Darnell has signed with the BC Lions and how he's going to fit in with their program. A few other things that we'll get to in the show is how the salary cap looks like it might be finally coming to Major League Baseball. Bud Selig said late in the season that salary caps are in other leagues and they're working, and he thinks a lot of the same issues that have plagued Major League Baseball way back to the strike of 94 that killed the season, maybe killed the Montreal Expos, are still issues in Major League Baseball. I don't disagree with anything what he's saying, and I'm not saying that I trust Bud Selig any more than any other high-level overpaid sports executive, but if they are going to bring in a salary cap, it'll have to come with a whole bunch of other things like more revenue sharing, a salary floor. But I wonder if maybe having a cap would actually be bad for the Toronto Blue Jays. We'll talk a little bit more about that coming up in hour 2 on the program. But right now, we're going to go out to the Western Pizza Guest Hotline, and we are joined by TSN's Farhan Lalji. And
it's time to get the inside story. TSN's Farhan Lalji on Sportscage is brought to you by the Cooperators. Time to get financially fit? Cooperators can build a plan that works for you. Cooperators, investing in your future together.
It's been so long, I've never done a Sports Cage with Farhan having his own segment sponsor, but here we are. I have to give you a little bit of credit, Farhan, because I'm not saying I don't like your other reporting that you do, but on Sunday, I don't watch a lot of NFL till this time of the year because I get footballed out with all the Rider stuff and then the Regina Rams stuff. And then in early December, I take a deep breath and I actually start paying attention to the National Football League. And I'm supposed to be a Denver Bronco fan, so I was all excited to see them play the Packers. And right before the game fires up, I saw your little pregame report from Seattle. And all week long, when I'm rocking my 2-year-old daughter to sleep, I see all these memes on social media about Phillip Rivers and how he's fat and he's this and he's that. But I don't really learn anything from it. Then in your pregame report, you mentioned how he said on the Dan Patrick show he wasn't sure if he could get through an NFL game or he'd have to be in a wheelchair at the end. You talked about how Seattle does a lot of hitting and about the noise in that stadium and how good they are and why the Colts brought Phillip out. And I said to my wife, I feel like Farhan just taught me more about this situation in the last 60 seconds than I knew for the longest time all week looking at all these memes. Is that the challenge of a good reporter, is that you're going into a big story, you're covering the big story, everybody's reporting on it, everybody's talking about it, but your report has to be different. You need to come up with something that's unique to stay relevant.
Well, sure. And, and at the end of the day, there was a lot of elements and layers to that storyline, right? From his age to his high school football team, watching him play, and 10 kids and one grandkid and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's still football, right? So you've got to try to put that context around it, and you want to do it in a way that isn't necessarily the cliche where you're just talking about the age, but you go into that environment and it's a tough place to play. So you want someone who can handle that moment. You don't know if Riley Leonard can handle that moment, but you know that Philip Rivers, even 5 years removed from playing, can. And I just think this is such cool stuff here, right? With his son's high school football team, and his son is a Division I, high level football prospect, right? So there's some good football going on there. He talked about how they run the same offense with his son's team that he ran. Just because he's got a good relationship with Shane Steichen, the head coach for the Colts, and they've been talking a lot about offense over the years. So I just think there's so many good layers to that story, and we'll see what happens now that Anthony Richardson comes back for the Colts. But for him to go into that environment against a pretty difficult defense to face and come out the way he did, I thought was great. You didn't want to see him. Everybody thought he was going to get embarrassed. Who wanted to see him get embarrassed? Not me.
Yeah, I was excited. Sorry, I wasn't excited anymore to watch the Denver game, and I should have been, because now after that report, I was really curious. What's this going to look like? What's going to happen? And I kept checking my phone to see what the score was in that Seattle-Indianapolis game. I was going to ask, when I think of a precedent for a quarterback being gone for so many years, you think about it, he sat out for 4 full seasons before coming back. The best one that I could come up with was in the Canadian Football League, Kerry Joseph, because he sat out for, I think it was 3 full seasons before he came back and quarterbacked for the Roughriders. Were you able to think of any other precedent that was more similar to that situation with Philip Rivers? Like, it's pretty rare.
Yeah, it is. And honestly, I couldn't. I mean, there were some that had been out a year and then kind of kicked their way back in, but they never wanted to leave. You know what I mean? Like, they were still preparing. They were still ready to go. And, but yeah, in terms of a guy that was just fully retired for that long enough to come off the couch, I don't know that there is a precedent like it.
Are you going anywhere else to report on any cool NFL destinations this weekend?
No, I was actually supposed to be in Oklahoma today for the start of the college football playoff, but with the game yesterday, we weren't able to make that work. But my next trips will be all college football. So I'm going to be in Dallas next week for the Cotton Bowl, and then after that, I'll go to both national semis and then the national championship in Miami. And then with that, there will be some NFL tied to it. We just don't know which games yet. We'll wait for the schedule and the storylines to play out. I mean, there's a chance I'll be in San Francisco for the final game of the year with the Seahawks there. I'll definitely get to a wild card game before or after the semifinals. So, it's that time of year where you get to these big games, and it's a lot of fun to be able to tell those stories.
They don't use the actual Cotton Bowl anymore, do they? Don't they play at the new Cowboy Stadium for that?
Correct. Yeah, they'll play AT&T in Arlington. And, it's crazy to me that the Texas-Oklahoma game, the Red River rivalry game, is still played at the Cotton Bowl, because the stadium probably should be condemned, but they want it there because it's just next to the grounds for the Texas Fair, and it's part of that event and all of that. So they basically keep this place open for one football game a year. I don't even think any high school teams use the Cotton Bowl anymore. So so definitely the game hasn't been played there for a while.
I don't know if I'd be more jealous of going there or going to the Cowboy Stadium. I know the Cowboy Stadium's a lot nicer, newer. I just feel like with the history around the Cotton Bowl, etc. So I grew up a diehard Vancouver Canuck fan. If you go to the old farmhouse where I grew up by Kipling, Saskatchewan, in my bedroom, because nobody's lived in that room since I was there, you'll still see posters of Pavel Bure and Trevor Linden. I think there's one of Igor Larionov. And, I was hardcore back in the day. In the last 10 years, I could probably count on one hand how many games I've actually watched from start to finish. I've drifted over to football, other things, whatever. So I have these eggheads who never reach out to me about the Canucks when the team's winning or when things are going right. But in the last week, the amount of text messages and other communication I've been getting about, McGuire, what's happening with your Canucks? How come nobody wants to play there? Nobody wants to stay? We'll get into that and I guess we'll touch on that right off the bat. I think about how we know that Winnipeg has all the players who have the Jets on their no trade clause because they don't want to go to Winnipeg. We used to see that as an issue for Edmonton back in the day, probably not so much now. Does Vancouver have that issue because you're on the West Coast, you're so far north, it rains so much, etc.? Is that just a thing, or is that a thing at all?
Well, it's not a thing when you're winning, right? And Vancouver's it's a destination city, right? And if you can afford to live here, which any NHL player can, this is a place that you'd like to live and you'd like to play. And it's not necessarily on a lot of no trade lists that way, but when the organization is struggling and there's a level of dysfunction, I'm not sure a lot of people want to come here. Now, the 3 players from Minnesota that came in the Quinn Hughes deal were pretty excited to get here, but and I don't think Quinn had any issue living here. It wasn't the city or the market. I just think the team was going absolutely nowhere. And from Hughes' perspective, he'd given the organization enough where, you've now got more player empowerment. Players are more willing to move. We saw Calgary have to deal with it with Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau and guys that wanted to leave. But again, in Quinn's case, I think if this team had been successful, if they had a direction, and he could see the light at the end of the tunnel, he probably would have wanted to stay, right? This wasn't just about going to play with his brothers. I think there's every opportunity that if they succeed and have deep playoff runs in Minnesota, that he'd extend with the Wild. I really do believe he would. So, and there's not a lot of players who want to go to Minnesota, right? Like, unless you're from that area, you probably don't want to live in that climate. So, and when it comes to American players playing in Canada, there's a lot of people that are now saying about the Vancouver Canucks, stop it with the Americans, right? Like, get some Canadian guys here that you can build a team around. And it just hasn't been the way it's played out. But, I always say this in baseball, everybody wants to play for the Yankees once. In the CFL, everybody wants to play for the Riders at some point. Like, you want to go where it matters the most, and playing in a Canadian market is where it matters the most. So American players generally want to come, and when they go through it, and the Canucks were in the playoffs 2 years ago, it's the greatest place to be. But when the team is struggling and the scrutiny is squarely on you, it's a tough place to be.
I have to confess, I'm actually a really big Jim Rutherford fan. I like the fact that it seems like I've heard him tell the story that when he was hired, he told them at one point, I'm not sure if I can take this, maybe go ahead, hire whoever you want to hire, and that the owner actually went to see him in Carolina or Pittsburgh or wherever, that it seems like they give him space, or he's carved out his own territory to not have any emotion involved at all. Like when people were saying, you got to give Bruce Boudreau a long-term extension, he said, no, we want to see him prove he can do it. And it turns out he couldn't. Then he made the change. It worked out well for a while with Rick Tocchet. It just seems like he kind of has that Bill Belichick way of looking at it and just removing all of the emotion. That said, I guess an argument could be made that the head coach he hired didn't stay long, that the success didn't last long. Some of the forwards didn't get along and a guy had to move out. Does he deserve, or he and his general manager deserve, a fair amount of the blame for the fact that the Canucks seem to be rebuilding again?
To a point, right? And look, I'm a fan of Jim Rutherford as well. I think his resume is impeccable, and I think he's done well wherever he's gone. And when he came here, he inherited a messy salary cap situation. And for the most part, they were able to navigate their way out of it. And, a lot of people forget that when they got to the playoffs 2 years ago and got to Game 7 against Edmonton in the second round, before that season, Jim Rutherford said a lot is going to have to go right in order for us to get into the playoffs. And during the regular season, everything went right. Everybody was healthy, crazy shooting percentages, career years for a number of players. The Rick Tocchet system took hold, quickly. Everything was going well. But he again, don't forget, when a GM says this or a president says this, and he knows what the inner workings of that roster are, you kind of need to believe him. And you can't expect everything to go right year after year. So to me, it just felt that even in that 2022 season, things were kind of going on a knife's edge, that it just wasn't sustainable. And then you saw it the next year when guys got hurt, and then there's locker room problems and things like that. The culture is bad, right? So when you look at this trade, for example, and we look at the word blame, I think Jim Rutherford made a really good trade, right? I mean, there are some good pieces coming back. You don't win a trade on day one when you give up the best player in the trade. But from Jim Rutherford's perspective, given what he was dealing with, he was dealing from a position of weakness where it was clear the player wanted to leave, and everybody was talking about Jersey and playing with his brothers and all of that. So he still managed to get legitimate return. But you can also blame him for how the roster got to this point. Like, if you knew in the offseason that Quinn Hughes was not likely to sign, why would you go out and get Evander Kane? Why would you go out and get older, right, rather than getting younger at that point? But then the other side of all of this is I think Jim Rutherford, when he first got hired, got a level of autonomy. To your point, he wasn't sure he wanted to take the job. Francesco Aquilini said, please take the job. And so then he got some autonomy. But as is often the case with the owner, eventually he gets involved. And if you're a GM and you want to rebuild, you're going to get some pushback. Now, Jim's in his late 70s. I don't know how much of a rebuild he wanted to begin with, but, that was tough, right? So it's hard to get alignment. So I think that's been a part of it. And now, this year, they finally got a little bit of buy-in on the rebuild word because it's gone so bad, and they're sitting in 32nd place. You can look at it and say, hey, look, we've got a unique opportunity. Let's take advantage of this. Let's not fully rebuild, but we'll move Quinn because he wants to be moved. There may be some other veteran players that we want to move. We'll try to get younger, and hopefully we can get a top 3 pick. They're not going to fully tank, and then maybe in a year or two we can reset as opposed to a longer-term rebuild. But for Rutherford, he's done some good things. He's done some things that haven't been as good, and he's also dealing in a situation where he can't completely do everything that he wants.
Marshall in Regina asks on the Prairie Land Rentals text line, he says, ask Farhan what he knows about the prize of the deal. Buam? Am I saying that right?
Boyum, yeah.
Boyum, thank you. Okay. What do you think about his prospects from what you know?
I think he's going to be really good. And look, I'd be lying to you if I said I've watched a lot of Zeev Boyum when he played junior or with the University of Denver or with the Minnesota Wild. But the reports that I get back from really, really credible hockey people is that, this guy might, like Quinn Hughes is arguably the best or second best defenseman behind Cale Makar in the National Hockey League. Well, people believe that Boyum is going to be a top 5 or worst case, a top 7, but definitely a number 1 defenseman for a playoff team that can run a power play at an elite level, can tilt the ice. He's a little bit bigger than Quinn, so is he going to have the crazy edge work and have the puck on his stick for 4 minutes a game? Probably not, but if he gets into that conversation of top 5 or top 7 defensemen in the world in the next 2 years, I think that's a pretty big win.
Especially if any of the other guys pan out, and they've all been first-round picks, so that potential is definitely there.
Well, and Marco Rossi's a legitimate second-line center, right? At various times in his career, he's played first line. He's been a 60-point guy, and the Canucks need help down the middle. So, we'll see if Pettersson can be a legitimate first-line center again. But if you could get Pettersson back to a 60-point pace and have Marco Rossi, if you can get Pettersson to an 80-point pace at some point here, and if you can get Marco Rossi playing at a 60-point pace again, you might be onto something.
I'm okay with it as a Canuck fan, somebody who casually pays attention, because if the captain doesn't want to be here, then let's move along. And if it has to be another rebuild, yeah, I know it's lousy. They were just rebuilding a few years ago, but what's the word? Rapid rebuild. You can live with a rapid rebuild. I don't know if it's going to be so rapid, but
I love the terms, right? Because when Trevor Linden talked rebuild, when he was the president here, it was the R word. They weren't going to do it no matter what. Now you hear things like, okay, well, they don't want to rebuild. They want to retool, or rapid rebuild, or hybrid rebuild, or now the evil word is tear down. We'll rebuild for a bit, but we're not going to tear it down to the studs and get rid of everybody. So just, the semantics around the word, I don't know if it's like this in other markets, but in this market, there's an insane amount of sensitivity to it over the last 10 years.
Well, I don't think you want to do it for like a decade like they did in Edmonton and bragged about how we're going to be good by being bad, but I can see they have some good pieces.
They didn't. See, Brendan, this is the thing with Edmonton. The idea that this was a disciplined rebuild that reaped Connor McDavid is pure BS. Because every year that management team thought, we're getting into the playoffs this year. They would make moves in the offseason with a design on getting into the playoffs this year. I remember going to a draft in Columbus sitting next to Kevin Lowe, who was beside himself. We were actually on the way back from the draft. That he had all these first-round picks that he was ready to trade, and he couldn't get anybody to trade with them. Like, McDavid was not the product of a disciplined rebuild and proper process. They stumbled and bumbled their way into that. When you look at teams like San Jose and Chicago in recent years attempting to rebuild, that's kind of what it looks like, right? And it's led to Macklin Celebrini. It's led to Connor Bedard, and it may lead them out of the dark ages, but it's taken 4 or 5 years, and the Canucks don't want to go down that road. But there are others who have had high picks that didn't intentionally do it. They just screwed up so big that they just wound up getting it anyway.
It's like what Brian Burke said when the Pittsburgh Penguins got Sidney Crosby. It wasn't part of some brilliant blueprint. They pulled him out of a draft or out of a ping pong box or whatever it was.
Sure.
I know we're tight for time, but I can't let you go without getting your take on Darnell Sankey. Was a pretty good linebacker, best linebacker for the Roughriders a few years ago. And Montreal, I thought, made the bold step of changing their ratio so that they could put a Canadian at that spot. I wonder if they're making Marc-Antoine Dequoy expendable, But how do you see him fitting in with the BC Lions?
Yeah, look, I think Sankey's a consistently productive player wherever he goes. Montreal, Calgary before that. I know he had a bit of time in Sask. This guy just produces, right? And he's not too old to continue to produce. So how does that fit in BC? You've had Micah Awe there. You've had Josh Woods there. I know Josh had an injury that slowed him down coming into this season, so he didn't necessarily have the production that people were expecting. Maybe they feel Awe's getting older, but I can't see a scenario where with Sankey coming in that both Woods and Awe are kept. You'd have to think one or the other probably gets moved on. But, Sankey's a difference maker defensively. I think he's a really good piece and a good ad for them.
I'll be curious to see what happens in Montreal, as I know Machocha's reworking the roster. Or maybe it's just a play to get Dequoy to take less money, because I don't know where Dequoy fits other than in Montreal. It seems like he's a natural fit for the Alouettes. Hey, listen, this has been great. We'll let you go start your weekend early and enjoy a weekend on the couch. You probably won't get too many more of those in the next 6 weeks.
No, you're right. I'll be traveling a lot, but Merry Christmas to you and yours, to Colson, Barney, and everybody else back there in Regina. Thanks for having me on all year.
And Merry Christmas to you, Farhan. And that is Farhan Lalji joining us on the Western Pizza guest hotline, the Greek-style pizza that has become famous around the world, plus all the Greek and Canadian food you can't get enough of. Western Pizza, the local legend. And that's a true story. When the Three Down Nation guys were here for Grey Cup a few years ago, what was the first thing they wanted to try in Regina? Western Pizza. Time to step aside. We'll be back with more of the Sports Cage, the Friday edition for Nelson Holmes on the YouTube channel and Rider Radio 620 CKRM.
The Country Music Rewind with Colin Lovequist.
'Tis the season. We are going to look at 25 great country Christmas classics on your Crawford's No Frills Country Music Rewind.
The Country Music Rewind with Colin Lovequist. Brought to you by Crawford's No Frills. Saturday afternoons at 4 and Sunday afternoons at 1 on Country's Greatest Hits. 620 CKRM. Ho, ho, ho.
Ready to raise your shower game? Rent a water heater and water softener together from Reliance Heath and turn every shower into a spa-worthy experience. Right now, when you rent a new water heater and water softener together, you'll get $400 back, sent by check after installation. Why settle for meh when you can upgrade your whole home's water and get big cashback savings? Don't miss out on this limited time offer.
Call on Reliance.
Call on Reliance Heath today.
Back to our regular spot, Pump Jacks Cathedral.
I thought Pump Jacks was a kind of boot polish till last month.
What are you getting?
Kerwin's crispy ribs and a cold pint of local craft. Crispy, meaty, beautiful.
You had me at meaty.
Plus, we got live music on the weekends, big screens. This place is basically my second marriage.
And way cheaper than the first.
On the corner of Albert and 13th, Pump Jacks Cathedral Saloon and Steakhouse. Come early, stay late. The place where friends meet.
Sask Lotteries has over 50 years of winning behind us. And you know what that means? Lots of winning numbers. Numbers like over 1,200 organizations funded and 12,000 plus groups supported. $6 million given away annually in community grants. And the winningest number of all? $1.4 billion given back to the people of Saskatchewan through sport, culture, and recreation. And we're just getting started. Learn more at sasklotteries.ca.
Since 1949, Nelson Homes has been providing you one-stop shopping for ready-to-move homes, panelized packages, and on-site builds. Nelson Homes' team of authorized dealers all over Saskatchewan would be happy to help you turn your dream home into a reality. In the Saskatoon area, call Kurt at Canadian Timber Homes or call 1-800-661-6534 for more information. Nelson Homes, trusted quality and service since 1949.
Back to Sports Cage. Text 306-936-6262. 620 CKRM.
It's the Friday Sports Cage for Nelson Homes, supplying home packages and RTMs for over 65 years. Brendan McGuire and Colson Schultz. I've been waiting months to say that on the air. Still ahead, we will check in with John Hodge from Three Down Nation, talk about the new standard set by some of these salaries, at least by CFL salaries. Brady Oliveira getting somewhere around $300,000. To be a starting running back, you don't see that very often, but he is a Canadian and one of the best. in the CFL. You know, one thing I brought up, the day AJ Ouellette signed with the Roughriders, he came in this studio. He and I did an hour together or a half hour together on the cage, and he revealed that he actually has like family ties to Canada. And when they decide whether they're going to count you as a Canadian or not, they're very loose with that definition. Like, it's almost like my uncle's cousin something was Canadian, and then they'll count you. And so I asked him, did you ever look into that? And he said it was too late. I had already played a game. And once you play a game as an American, you cannot be switched to a Canadian. But it makes me wonder, because he's had a good career and a good run, how much extra money he could make or last if they counted him as a Canadian. But I digress. Our next guest on the Western Pizza Hotline just wrapped up his 5th season as the head coach of the University of Regina Rams. They matched a program best 6-win season. Welcome to the show, Mark McConkey. Are you going home to Calgary for Christmas, or what are you doing?
No, we're staying here and not doing much, and I'm looking forward to it.
You came through on that big population wave that came from Alberta in 2007 when you started with the Rams. And right now I know you're out on the recruiting roads looking for players. What does life for you look like after the holidays, like January, February, when you're pounding the pavement?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I kind of learned as a head coach, and obviously my wife learned as well, is like as soon as the season ends, it's kind of done for majority of the coaches on our staff, and then the full-time guys get right to work. Like we lost the Hardy Cup this year to UVS on Saturday. Sunday, all day, I was busy recruiting, setting up visits, and it's pretty much been go, go, go until literally this week, and then we start our recruiting blackout tonight, actually, at midnight. So nice little break here. Then come January 5th, we're right back at it. So I got visits coming in pretty much every weekend up until probably February 10th or so, and then we should be pretty much done our recruiting class, and then we're bit of a month off there, then on to the next year in March.
Do you go into a recruiting blackout, or is that just how it is in February?
No, that's just how it is. Yeah, so we have a blackout in like tonight for about 3 weeks, and then we have one in July. There's an East-West one. February is usually kind of like we're wrapping up. There's always going to be recruiting. You're always recruiting, but the majority of it will be done by February 6th.
Richie Hall was once offered an assistant coaching job at the University of California with the Golden Bears under Jeff Tedford, and he chose to stay with the Roughriders for what Danny Barrett estimated would be about a third of what he would have made if he had gone to California. That was almost 20 years ago, so I saw Richie at the Combine last year, and I asked him all about that, and he said the thing that freaked him out about it was the recruiting schedule in the offseason. So when I was going to talk to you about this, I thought, well, it's a little different down there, but from the way you're making it sound, it doesn't sound like it's a lot different, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously it's a little bit more elevated down there, but they also have more people. And again, we met with a couple staff members at Texas A&M last year in the offseason to see how they recruit. And their recruiting department is just, it's a little bit bigger than myself and Coach Anderson that we have here. They got like 25 student interns and then all the coaches that are full-time. And yeah, it's a different beast down there for sure. But again, we're all putting in the hours, pounding the pavement, trying to convince players to come to our institution and play for whatever team you're coaching.
We had a lot of fun a couple weeks ago at the U of R Rams Football Awards Banquet. And, of course, 620 CKRM is the only terrestrial radio station that still does Canada West football. We're still very happy to do that, and we love doing the Ram broadcasts every fall. And we were lucky to sponsor and present the MVP award to Marshall Erickson, your running back. There he is. I can tell you the guy on the right did a lot more work to get in that photo than the guy on the left. But I almost wonder if the award is cursed, because last year we gave it to Jackson Somback and his arm was in a sling, and this year we gave it to Marshall and he was on crutches. But I know he's excited about coming back after the injury. I was looking at the you had all the All-Stars. There were 11 Canada West All-Stars, and 9 of them, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 9 are eligible to return. Are you expecting to lose some of them to other things, be it opportunities or to the Canadian Football League draft? Have you really thought that through and come up with a projection in your mind as to how many of those star players are going to be part of your team in 26?
Yeah, I'd say majority of them are back. Like, we're going to lose a few to graduation that we just know about, like Riley Schick, some of those ones. But an example would be Ethan Graham, right? He was a Canada West All-Star. He's going into his draft year this year. He will get drafted. It's just a matter of will he come back or not, or will the team send him back? So we're always planning on him coming back, and obviously if he makes it, we're pumped for him, happy for him. But you just never really know, and that's why it's hard for roster management at this level because you just never know. And then you got the academic side of things on top of it. And then you get players and their personal lives, what's going on. So you just really never know. So it's always kind of like a ballpark number of where you're aiming for and how many guys you want and want to go after.
So you lose two of your starting offensive linemen for sure to graduation. Nick McConkey at the one guard spot, Riley Schick, really good player at the center spot. But you kind of built a luxury when Nate Boyd had to step in, and you had three very capable tackles throughout the season. You might lose the one with Ethan Graham, but the one that's most intriguing to me would be Connor Klassen, who was drafted by the BC Lions last year, and I think he blew out his knee, if I'm not mistaken, and he was with your program all year. And he told me if things don't work out with the Lions, he'd love to come back for his senior year with the Rams. And it got me thinking about that center position. Maybe a young prospect might show a CFL team that he's versatile and can play different positions if he plays center. Has that thought crept in? Is that a possibility if you get Connor Klassen back next year?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everything's on the table, especially right now. We're in December, January. We kind of restart everything, what we're doing, what we're about, what do we want to run on offense, who's playing where. And actually, like, the scary part is, like, our line actually might get better from last year. And again, it's hard to replace Schick and McConkey, but we get Connor Klassen back, who was a starter for us, who got drafted. And a young guy that we had high hopes for but got hurt in week one is Davin Barry. Hurt his shoulder, out for the year. So we lost a few key pieces early on, and so we're excited to see what the O-line looks like next year. I don't think they'll miss a step, and we just got to keep building and try to win another Hardy Cup and get back into the big dance.
I get the sense that you have plenty of star power coming back, regardless of, if whatever happens with Ethan or any of the other players. When you think about who you're going to replace, it's more of the heart and soul guys. We talked about Riley Schick. I even think about like Emmett Stedman and Ryland Sokol. I mean, those guys are not necessarily star players. But there they were in the Hardy Cup, making clutch catches when you needed them the most, giving you a fighting chance at the end. I think about Chopper Hippie, who was clutch all year. I feel like you're not so much you're losing some star power, but you can live without. It's the heart and soul that you're going to have to replace in 26. Is that a fair take?
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially in the receiver room, like losing Sokol and Stedman, like those guys are fifth-year guys. They've been here for a while. Just the way they approach the game, they're process driven, the way they practice and lead. So we'll definitely miss their leadership. Yeah, we've got some young guys that are good football players that will be able to replace those guys, but just that leadership that's hard to replace. And like you said, the same thing would go for guys like Dekinowicz and Chopper on the defensive side of the ball. So we're ready to replace them. We're ready. I mean, that's how it goes in this. You can't keep them forever. And now we're ready to go. But the majority of those guys that were all-stars and majority of the players that played last year are coming back. So we're excited for 2026.
Especially with your quarterback. I hadn't seen much of Owen Sieben because he was concussed the first game that I broadcast. And it really wasn't until the game in Edmonton late in the season when I started to say, oh my goodness, I see what people are talking about. Just the way he ad-libs and plays break down. And I remember he hit, for those of you who don't follow the Rams, Christian Katendi's kind of a ground and pound running back. And he was hit with like a 15-yard pass. And it was almost like, oh my God, it's coming to me. I've got to catch this. And he would catch it. And it was a big play. Do you feel like Owen is cranked all the way back up to where he needed to be entering his final 2 years of eligibility?
Yeah, I think he played great. And obviously, 2024, tough year for him after winning the Rookie of the Year in 2023. Had to miss the whole season. And then this year, kind of coming back from injury, went with Pellichet for the first half of the season. And then he just got better and better as the year went on. And even in the Hardy Cup, I know it was a tough loss for us, but I thought he was one of our better players. Did a really good job protecting the football. There's a few that he's going to want back, but he made some throws that not a lot of quarterbacks in this league can make. So he gave us a chance to win there. And we're excited to keep building off of that with him for his final 2 years with us.
One thing I'm always curious about, the games at Libel are lots of fun, but we do have this new stadium, best football stadium in Canada. I know it's almost 10 years old, still feels like it's brand new. And years ago, I was told by somebody that it's a good recruiting tool for the Thunder, and I suspect it's a good recruiting tool for the Rams. Now, I never asked any of your out-of-province star recruits about this, but I was talking to Nick Sirleaf one day, and he said, yeah, I played a little bit in his decision to want to play here. While you're out on the recruiting season, do you find that matters when you're talking to a kid from Alberta or BC trying to convince him to come to Regina and play for your program?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, every recruit's a little bit different. Some it's more purely academic based. Some it's head coach OC based scheme, like where they're going to fit playing time. Some it's scholarship. But yeah, like I mean, sometimes the stadium's exciting. I remember talking to Nick; he was pretty excited about playing it because he wants to play pro, and he's like, "Why not play in a pro stadium?" But then some guys like the smaller stadiums, like Libel, like even some of our guys, our team's kind of split, half like Mosaic, half like Libel, because you get a better atmosphere. Smaller venue, so it just seems more packed. But half of them like Mosaic because it's just a little bit nicer, a little bit bigger, more of that pro style. So everyone's different for sure, and we obviously always bring it up. We give them a tour of it, both Libel and Mosaic, because we do end up playing at both spots. So it definitely can be for sure advantageous for us.
I was covering the Vanier Cup for Canadian Press, and I was down on the field when they were doing the trophy presentation to the Carabins, and I looked around and I saw some of your staff members who were watching this celebration, and it kind of reminded me of, and this is maybe not a very good comparison, but it's like when you have this, you've cooked this pizza and it smells so good, and your dog is looking up at you and they're watching you eat this pizza. That's what I felt like it looked like, you know, your staffers watching this. Did it feel like you were watching somebody in your house using your kitchen and your equipment, making some delicious pizza and then eating it while you had to sit there and watch?
Yeah, I mean, you got to give a shout out to the Vanier committee. They put a lot of time and blood, sweat, and tears into putting on a great event. And you've heard from U Sports, like they definitely want to do it here again. I don't know if we want to as a university, but they just did an outstanding job, and no matter who was in it, we knew they were going to do a good job hosting it. And yeah, they were grinding all week, making sure it was right for both teams, the Huskies and the Caravan. And yeah, I mean, ultimately it was tough seeing U of S in it. We knew we were so close, and we knew we could have been in there. And but at the end of the day, they did a great job putting on a great show. And yeah, like it would have been nice for us to be in it too. But again, we got a lot of work to do to get better and make sure we give ourselves a chance to play no matter where it is. But yeah, there's a little bit of I don't know the right word to say, but yeah, so it would have been nice to be in it for sure.
I felt like it would have been more salt in the wounds if you had to watch the Huskies celebrate on your own home turf. But is that part of what's building a program? Is the fact that like this is I've looked it up because I find U Sport football really fascinating. There's 27 teams. There's so many different storylines. 6 of them have never been in a Vanier Cup, and 3 of them have been to a Vanier Cup and have never won, and that's your program. Is that part of the evolution of building to a team that really fights for a championship, is having to go through an experience like that where you're disappointed that you're not there on that field?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, every loss is a learning, right? You can learn from every loss, even every win. And even we learned a lot about ourselves and our program in 2024, getting to the Mitchell Bowl, again, 3 points away from going to the Vanier. And then this year, again, up in the Hardy Cup, just couldn't finish it off. So we're knocking on the door, and these things take time. I mean, you look at like the great Greg Marshall just retired yesterday from Western. He's been knocking on the door forever, and he finally punched through and won Calgary from 09 to 19. They were in so many Vanier Cups and so many Mitchell Bowls, but could never win it. Like it's a hard trophy to win. It's a competitive conference. Then you got to play 2 hard playoff games, and then you're in the national semi. And then you got to win once. You got to win 4. So it's hard to win at this level, and there's not a lot of parity across U Sports. I mean, in Canada West there is. So some teams have a bit of an easier schedule than we do, but we're in the thick of it in Can West, which we love. It's hard to do, but it's a challenge that we look forward to, and we're going to keep striving and knocking on the door. Even just being in back-to-back Hardy Cups was a big win for us, and now we want to be in 3 in a row, which has never been done in our program. So we're close. We just got to keep pushing, keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully one day in the near future we can host that Vanier Cup.
Real quick before I let you go, has anyone on your staff indicated they won't be back in the 26th season?
Yeah, no, everything's looking good. And that's one thing that I'm really proud of our guys is we're very consistent. We got great volunteer coaches. So the more consistent you can keep it, the better off we are. And yeah, we're just looking forward to another exciting year.
Glad to hear it. Congrats on a great season. I know the games were a lot of fun to watch and to broadcast. Merry Christmas. Enjoy the holidays, and we'll talk to you again in the new year.
Sounds good. Yeah, I appreciate all the work you do for the radio and the program. And yeah, have a great holiday.
Good stuff. That is Mark McConkey, the head coach of the University of Regina Rams, coming off a record-tying 6-2 season. I know they were so disappointed they couldn't break the record, whether they admitted it or not, on the last game of the year against UBC, but worth the price of admission, especially this quarterback, Owen Sieben, with the way he rolls out of the pocket and makes throws. And I know that they're very excited about him and the fact that he could still be back for 2 more seasons. Time to break. We'll be back with more on the Friday Sportscage for Nelson Holmes on the Voice of Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM.
When you play Sports Select, you're part of more than the game. You're backing over 12,000 sport, culture, and recreation groups across Saskatchewan funded through Sask Lotteries. So go ahead, make your picks at sportselect.com, generate your QR code, and lock in your bet at your local Lotto Spot retailer. Every play is 100% legal, and every ticket supports your community. Sports Select. When you're ready to play, bet on the original. Must be 18 plus. Please play responsibly.
And the puck's dropped on your financial future. Are you skating toward retirement? Don't get caught offside when it comes to your work pension, farm succession, or changing family needs. Chad Reach, Senior Wealth Advisor, and the team at GP Financial Services and Aviso Wealth are your local independent advisors helping Saskatchewan families plan for retirement and beyond. 306-584-2755, gpfinancial.ca. Mutual funds and other securities are offered through Aviso Wealth, a division of Aviso Financial Inc.
Out on the prairies, some herds are still living like it's 1995, waiting around the corral like they're expecting a landline to ring. Trouble is, it's 2025, and your cattle need water where they are, not where the old hookup happens to be. That's where Keln Solar makes you the hero. With solar livestock watering systems, you can drop a pump just about anywhere. No grid, no trenching, no fuss. Modern tech for modern ranching. Keep the water moving and the herd happy. Keln Solar. They move water because your cows won't. Visit kelnsolar.com.
Text CKRM 306-936-6262 for Prairie Land Rentals. Renting heaters, skid steers, and most power tools for all those winter jobs. And your official Husqvarna snow thrower dealer. Prairie Land Rentals, 600 Albert Street, where you deal with the owner. Don't miss a minute of Sportscage. Podcasts are posted at sportscage.com. 620 CKRM.
It's the Friday edition of the Sports Cage here on the almighty 620. Brendan McGuire and Colson Schultz with you. Coming up in hour 2, we'll touch base with our NHL insider Eric Francis. He has some thoughts about some players who should be on the inside looking out on Canada's Olympic team. I'm curious if they're even going to go to the Olympics. I keep hearing all this worry about the ice, quality, the size of it. Personally, I'd kind of be okay if they don't play the Olympics because we had this great moment in the Four Nations Cup last year, which couldn't have gone better than it did. And it's almost like we go through these waves where we finally get a high-level international tournament, and that one was long overdue. It's a travesty that we had to wait this long to see Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid play on the same roster. But on the same token, I feel like sometimes it goes so well that we feel like we have to do it every year. And if you do it every year, it does lose some of its luster. I really believe that. In the, I'll never forget Nagano, 98, you'd get these wake-up calls, which is silly because today you don't need that. Everybody's got an alarm clock on their phone. But I remember you could order a wake-up call where it was probably Molson's, one of the beer companies. They would call you and you would pick up the phone and it would say, get up because it's 4 a.m., to turn on the game between Canada and U.S. or whoever they're playing because all the games were in the middle of the night. And it was a real thrill because it was the first time ever you were seeing NHL players go in the Olympics. And I remember the heartbreak when Canada couldn't win in 98 when Dominik Hasek used his slinky of a spine to beat everybody and the Czech Republic won the first gold. And looking back on that, I actually think that was a really cool story because the Czech Republic's this tiny little country and they beat everybody. And then we got our moment in 2002, Salt Lake. And then pretty soon after that, I guess 2006 didn't go so well in Torino, and then in 2010, when Canada won in Vancouver, and then 2014 in Sochi, I was kind of done at that point. I wasn't that disappointed when the NHL decided they didn't want to partake in 2018. So I'm not saying that the NHL was right to step back, but there is fatigue. You can do too much of a good thing. And the fact, look, we beat the Americans and I don't want to get political, but their president last year. I don't want that taken from us just a year later. I'd be okay if the NHL doesn't go.
Fair enough. And I think we see it a lot with like all-star games these days, like with the NBA and the NFL. That's what made the NHL Four Nations Cup so good, was that there was that little extra patriotism in it that made it matter, right? And made the players care. Because these all-star games have been done so many times, the players aren't invested anymore. They know they're the best in the world already, and now they're the best of the best. Why do they need to compete extra about it? And they're just not invested in all-star games that used to be, again, a showcase of the best, which is what the Olympics is supposed to be, what these tournaments are supposed to be, and they're not that anymore.
Ray Fosse was a really good catcher in the 70s, and he was bowled over at home plate by Pete Rose and broke his leg, and that really impacted his career, probably shortened his career. And he said he never had any bitterness at all at Pete Rose, because just in the moment, it's the All-Star game. That's how much the All-Star game really meant 50 years ago, and it does not have that juice anymore. Do you think that would change it if they just did the All-Star game every 4 years?
I don't know. Because
you'd never see that today.
No. And like even in the last 10, 15 years with the NFL, going from guys like trying so hard they're getting hurt to now it's literally flag football and dodgeball and competitions. It would be really interesting to figure out a cycle where you could do it that would make it still competitive, right? Because like the NHL, of course, this year, because they're going to the Olympics, doesn't have an all-star break because the Olympics fills that void. So that one makes sense. But in other leagues, I don't know how you would as easily structure it, right? A break maybe could be the idea if you're like, this year it's by nationality, this year it's just the best on best, whatever, right? I don't know. There's so many different ways that you could dream it up, but it's a thought.
I like the fact that they're getting more and more creative all the time. Like when they did the draft and they split up the Sedins, like that was kind of exciting. I mean, I still didn't watch it, but it was exciting to see the highlights after. I've always preferred, even back when people did watch the All-Star game, I was always much, much more interested in the skills competition. I always thought that was cool to see who'd have the hardest slap shot, who really was the fastest skater. And sometimes you'd be surprised, like players who you would never expect would win those competitions because you don't know just as a regular fan.
Yeah, those were always fantastic. And even looking at the NBA, the slam dunk competition was always the biggest thing. But as we've reached the limits of human capacity, it's worn away. And then it's turned into the three-point competition was the exciting thing because it was just seeing how accurate people can get, right? That superseded the dunk competition for a few years in the NBA.
And the dunk competition comes and goes. Like it was really big in the 80s with Spud Webb when he was making those crazy dunks. And then they brought it back for Vince Carter, and that looked amazing. And then Vince didn't want to do it anymore, so they took it away.
And again, players aren't interested. They're not invested, and that's the biggest thing. And I think the last big one, I think it was when Toronto hosted in like 2015 or something. Like it was Aaron Gordon, and I'm forgetting the other guy's name now, but they were just going off. And it
Blake
was
Griffin,
excellent.
maybe?
I don't remember.
He jumped over the car. I think that was in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and I think that there was a lot of speculation that one was rigged because the car was also the sponsor. And I digress. But yeah, it's players' investment, right? When the players are invested, the product is better. That's the biggest thing for both the competitions, whether it's All-Star Olympics or whatever, what have you.
I guess there's the argument, who cares? It's just an all-star game. Just have fun with it. The players don't have to play that hard. At least there's lots of goals, and we never have enough of those during the regular games anyways. Coming up in hour 2, Eric Francis from Sportsnet and Maddax Schultz from the Regina Pats, all still ahead on this Friday edition of the Sportscage for Nelson Holmes on the Sportscage YouTube channel and on the Voice of Saskatchewan 620 CKRM.
You want to stay in the loop without any hassle. Well, we've got the perfect solution for you. The Regina Today newsletter. Get the Regina Today newsletter delivered straight to your phone. No searching, no scrolling, just all the latest news, events, and contests when you want it. Text the word news to 306-936-6262 and get the inside scoop sent straight to your inbox. Regina Today from sastoday.ca, bringing the city to your fingertips.
If you've got a Steelcraft garage door, you've got a door with parts manufactured and assembled right here in Canada. A door with better insulation and seal, plus a warranty you're probably never going to use. And if you don't have a Steelcraft garage door, you should get one. Don't just hang a door, install a Steelcraft. Turn curb appeal into curb envy.
Steelcraft door, Steelcraft door, Steelcraft door. We offer more.
Steel-craft.ca.
Everyone at Freeze Tallman would like to wish you and yours happy holidays. We hope you build a mountain of holiday memories and remember that time with friends and family is the foundation of the holidays. So don't ever cut a chance to celebrate with loved ones short, even if you'd rather lumber off to bed. We hope this holiday season is the best one you ever saw. Happy holidays from Freeze Tallman in Regina and Fort Qu'Appelle. Let's get you building.
Since 1949, Nelson Homes has been providing you one-stop shopping for ready-to-move homes, panelized packages, and on-site builds. Nelson Homes' team of authorized dealers all over Saskatchewan would be happy to help you turn your dream home into a reality.
In the Saskatoon area, call Kurt at Canadian Timber Homes.
Or call 1-800-661-6534 for more information. Nelson Homes, trusted quality and service since 1949.
It's time for the Sports Ticker, brought to you by Reliance Heath Water Heater Rentals. Bundle and save with Reliance Heath. Rent a new water heater and softener together and get $400 cash back. Call on Reliance Heath today.
Lots happening in the hockey world tonight. The Kelowna Rockets visit the Prince Albert Raiders. Of course, we'll have some dub talk a little bit later with Maddax Schultz from the Regina Pats and Dante to Caria, their broadcast person as well. SJHL games, still 5 games being played before the Christmas break tonight. Estevan Bruins visit the Yorkton Terriers. Melville Millionaires are in Weyburn to play the Red Wings. Nipawin Hawks at Melfort Mustangs. Flin Flon is at La Ronge in a Battle of the North. And the Warman Wolverines, still sounds weird to say, are visiting the Humboldt Broncos. Some Junior B, Prairie Junior Hockey League regular season. Saskatoon Royals at Carrot River Thunder. Prince Albert Timberjacks at Martinsville Chiefs, and closer to home, the Regina Capitals at Mooseman Steelhawks. I didn't even know that Mooseman had a Junior B team. I grew up out in that area. Grand Slam of Curling, the Hearing Life Canadian Open is in Saskatoon. Some of the top teams in the world are converging in Saskatoon for this event that runs through December the 21st. So that's Sunday. And on today's schedule, they have already completed 2 draws. The third draw is just getting underway, and there's another one later tonight at 8 o'clock. The complete schedule and results can be found at www.theGrandSlamOfCurling.com. And some NHL games tonight. My Canucks are facing the Islanders. We'll talk about that a little later. And the Winnipeg Jets visiting the Colorado Avalanche. Sportscage.com poll. Which position group do you think the Saskatchewan Roughriders should focus on re-signing? Vote at sportscage.com. I've got a few thoughts of my own on that as well. We will be back with more of the Sports Cage on the YouTube channel and also on the Voice of Saskatchewan, the almighty 620 CKRM.
620 CKRM, a Harvard media station, broadcasting from Regina, around the world at 620CKRM.com.
It's 4 o'clock. From the sasktoday.ca newsroom, here's your 620 CKRM News. A worker who died in an underground potash mine in Saskatchewan this week has been identified as a loving father and an active union member. Unifor says Tyrone McLeod was a mine operator at the Mosaic Company's K3 mine near Esterhazy. The 41-year-old leaves behind a wife and 2 daughters. The union says the province's Ministry of Labour Relations and Workplace Safety is investigating the death, and Unifor is seeking to be part of the process. Regina's outdoor rinks are part of the Winter City Stamp Rally, an interactive program that encourages residents and visitors to explore winter attractions through the city. Participants collect stamps at designated locations and earn points towards prizes. Most outdoor rinks around town are now open and ready for use. Details on participating sites and how to take part can be found at regina.ca/stamp rally. Saskatchewan crop production hit an all-time high in 2025, reaching 41.9 million metric tons, according to Statistics Canada. The total is up 13.7% from 2024 and more than 24% above the 5-year average. Canola and lentils both set records, while strong gains were also reported for wheat, barley, and durum. Agriculture Minister David Marit says the results keep Saskatchewan within reach of its goal to produce 45 million tonnes by 2030, despite weather and market challenges. The estimates come from surveys of more than 7,000 producers after harvest conducted across the province. Organizations representing Saskatchewan farmers want up-to-date information on grain sales. Marlene Borsch with Mercantile Consulting says currently most of the information in Canada is lagging well behind the market.
All we have is very delayed StatScan data. And for example, at the moment, we haven't even seen October data yet. And other than that, we have the Canadian Grain Commission handling data, which many people look at faithfully every week. But again, that's an execution data. It has nothing to do with what's going on in the market right now.
Borsch says Canadian farmers are at a disadvantage compared to their U.S. counterparts. Groups such as APAS and Sask Crops, consisting of 4 crop development commissions, have been working on this file for years, calling on the federal government to create an export sales reporting system similar to the U.S. and the European Union. The Regina Airport Authority has announced changes to its fee schedule effective on June 1st. The passenger facility fee for departing passengers will rise from $30 to $40 plus taxes. Landing and terminal fees for airlines will remain unchanged, among the lowest in Canada. President James Bogus says the increase will fund infrastructure and service improvements, ensuring safety and passenger experience keep pace with growth. The airport operates independently, relying on passenger fees to support operations. And Canada's retail sales fell 0.2% to roughly $69 billion in October, as sales at beer, wine, and liquor stores dropped. Statistics Canada says sales at food and beverage retailers were down 2%, as beer, wine, and liquor retailers fell about 10%. The drop in these alcohol sales coincided with labor disruptions in British Columbia. StatsCan's advance estimate points to a gain of 1.2% in retail sales for November. That's your 620 CKRM News. Read more stories from around your community and around the province at sasktoday.ca and 620ckrm.com. Your weather is next.
And this weather forecast is brought to you by Line-X Regina. Serious protection. Killer looks. 1865 McCarra Street. For tonight, snow flurries and light snow showers up to 2 centimeters, they're saying. Wind out of the west-northwest. Up to 45 kilometer gusts and maybe even getting up to 70 kilometers overnight, a low of minus 23. For Saturday, early flurries, diminishing wind, and mostly sunny, very light wind out of the west-northwest, and a high of minus 20. Saturday, mainly clear, very light wind out of the southeast, low of minus 25. For Sunday, we're looking at mostly sunny, light wind, and a high of minus 12. For Monday, partly sunny, chance of flurries at night, a high of minus 8, and then pretty well the same for Tuesday, partly sunny and a high of minus 10.
For 40 years, the team from Line-X Regina has been protecting vehicles across Saskatchewan, and we're changing with the times. 3 generations of our family have protected your vehicles. Our business has evolved, and we're not stopping now. The next generation is here. Same family, same commitment, ready for the next generation of truck beds, rocker panels, trailers, bumpers, and running boards in all kinds of colors. Line-X Regina, 1865 McCarra Street, the next generation of protective coatings.
Broadcasting from Century Studios in downtown Regina, Harvard Media presents The Sportscage, where Saskatchewan comes to talk local sports. Brought to you by Nelson Homes, supplying home packages and RTMs for over 65 years. Be part of the show. Call 1-866-767-0620 or text 306-936-6262. The Sportscage. Streaming at sportscage.com, our YouTube channel, and on the radio at 620 CKRM.
Hoo-ha, the Friday edition of the Sports Cage. That's what's his name? The sports desk guy, Jim Van Horn, used to always say with the great mustache. You feel me? Or that's before your time.
Yeah. A bit young for that.
Okay, whatever. Snot-nosed little punks. You can chime in on the Prairie Land Rentals text line. Couple of texts. Russell and Riley in Milestone are watching. And also, happy birthday shout out to Sheldon following in Kipling, Saskatchewan. I'm rocking my Kipling Royals t-shirt today. Favorite hockey team growing up. Big part of my love of sport in my youth. And I know we all have one or two of our local teams that we follow and have a lot of success and win championships and teach us all what it's all about. Also on the YouTube chat, Brandon April saying Saskatchewan Roughriders going to sign some more players, or sorry, when will the Saskatchewan Roughriders going to sign some more players? I think I know what you're asking. When are they going to sign some more players? We don't know. Free agency opens in mid-February, but we know that some of the pending free agents will continue to roll in up until that date, and some of them won't be re-signed. And the longer some of those pending free agents don't get re-signed, the more in doubt their return to Riderville will be. At Ed Stevens, 233 says, have two captains pick the players for their team the night before. So he's talking about the All-Star game and a way to jazz it up. I don't know that they want to get to a point they're doing it the night before, but they have done it, I think it was 2 nights before when they started the event. And I want to say Patrick Kane might have been one of the captains. I don't remember who the other was. It might have been Kane and Taves, but they split up the Sedins. And so that was seen as kind of a cool thing because they had never been apart before. Keep the texts coming. Whatever you need to rent to get the job done, Prairie Land Rentals probably has it. Also, an official Husqvarna snow thrower dealer. Deal with the owner, 600 Albert Street. Okay, let's go to Eric Francis.
Now for Inside the NHL with Eric Francis on the Sports Cage. Inside the NHL is brought to you by Sports Select. Getting in on more of the sports action you want is as easy as playing at sportselect.com. Simply make your picks online, generate your QR code, and lock in your bet at your local Lotto Spot retailer.
And we go to the Western Pizza hotline, and we are joined by Eric Francis, who I assume is in the great city of Calgary, even though he's got all that Hartford Whaler garb in the background. And before we get started, I don't want to steal anybody else's thunder here, but I've heard a couple of dribs and drabs that you once kicked for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Is that true?
Oh, it's one of my favorite stories in the world. I played... I kicked a field goal at a Stampeders game, and I won $50,000, a 48-yard field goal. And I'd only played soccer. I'd never played football in my life, and it was a bit of a, I won't say a miracle, but if you're a soccer player, it's not that hard. It didn't seem that hard anyway. And then I always want to do this George Plimpton thing where you go and you put yourself in the athlete's shoes. And so I convinced Ron Lancaster to give me a shot with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And under the guise that I was a journalist there, writing every day what it was like to be in the CFL, trying out for a team, doing 2-a-days. I trained for 3 months to get ready, or 6 months actually. And then I kicked in 2 preseason games and retired with the highest kicking percentage in CFL history. I was 1 for 1. I kicked against Doug Flutie and the defending champions. This was 1998, I believe. So I'm old, and it was a long time ago, and I can't believe that a pro sports team would allow that stuff to happen now, but it was a different day back then.
I think it should happen more often. I remember the Argos letting Ty Domi do it for some charity thing, and I think he was friends with Don Matthews. That's a really cool story, and you know what? On one hand, maybe it's tragic that you didn't have a long career in the CFL, but I have a feeling that being an NHL writer is probably more lucrative than any CFL career would have been. So it probably worked out just fine.
The contract I had signed in '98 was for $36,000 a year if I'd have made the team and pursued it. So yeah, I couldn't have afforded to take the pay cut. I think back then I was probably making $38,000. So it would have been a big drop. I don't know.
Big difference. Hey, I wanted to ask you, we'll talk about some of the takes you've had about the Canada's Olympic team, and I think the list is coming out New Year's Eve, if I'm not mistaken. What's your over-under that the NHL is going to send players to the Olympics? I keep hearing this ice issue keeps creeping up and doesn't seem to be going away.
I can't imagine that. Hey, that still looms large, the fact that the damn thing isn't even built right now. It's absolutely ridiculous, but that's out of the NHL's hands. And I think the NHL would be okay with just saying, you know what, this is unsafe, this is ridiculous, station that we're here, but we're not going to play. I mean, they're going to send all those guys over there and not play because the ice is a little mushy or maybe it's too hard and it's breaking. I can't fathom that happening at all. The NHL has their ice people there, and whenever the ice plant and rink is actually ready to go, they'll be working 24/7 to try and make sure that they get it as good as they can. And look, they can make outdoor ice in Miami now, and Fort Lauderdale and all these places. They can make ice in Italy. I'm pretty sure of it. So I would say there's about a 1% chance that they're not going to play the Olympics this year.
At what point, if they were to pull out, if that 1% were to happen, what would be a deadline, do you think? Because they can't push it too far. You know, I don't think that, I know they pulled out in the last Olympics, I guess it was, or sorry, I had my years all mixed up, but the one year they didn't want to go because of the COVID and whatnot. They didn't want to go to China. I don't know how late it was when they pulled out. It was pretty close, but is there a drop dead date where you'd say, okay, well, if they haven't pulled out yet, they're not gonna?
It's a great question, and I would say that, like, I honestly think if they were going to drop out, they would drop out like 2 days before. I think they would give it every opportunity. Like, I think you'd have all the guys there and their families there, and I think it literally would have to be 1 or 2 days before the puck was actually supposed to drop on the tournament before they said, we absolutely have exhausted all the possibilities and this ice is just not safe. Or worst case scenario, the ice is not even ready, or the building's not ready, or it's not safe, it hasn't been approved. I think they'd push it to the last minute. So if they did pull the pin, I'd be surprised if they did it anything more than like a day or two before. I really think they'd push it to the limit.
You mentioned that the Players Association will want to go, and the players really, really want to go. I know you don't cover the other leagues as much or the other sports as much. Do you think any other Players Association in the NBA or Major League Baseball or even the NFL would care that much and probably would have, I would opine, have members who would want to get out of it? Like, it's just so different, isn't it? Isn't that the one thing that's different about hockey players, how badly they want to play in these international competitions?
Well, yeah, and the dream team in basketball and everything, that's such a big deal that I have a hard time believing that the basketball players don't, like, I think they put a lot of stock in the Olympics too, and they wouldn't just walk away. Baseball players, maybe they would. I don't care. Maybe they don't care that much. But I know with hockey, look, it's been since 2014 since we've had NHLers there. So all the best players in the world are just dying to not only have best on best like we did at the Four Nations, albeit just 4 teams. They're dying to do it on the biggest stage possible, which is something some guys grow up dreaming of. You know, you talk to almost any NHLer, and they'll tell you they dream of winning a Stanley Cup. You don't hear very often of a guy talking about, I dreamt of winning an Olympic gold. But, I think that is going to be more and more a thing. When you talk to European players, a lot of them don't ever talk. They didn't grow up wanting to win a Stanley Cup. They grew up wanting to win a world championship. Like, that's a big deal for them. So in that same vein of world championships and Olympic play, representing your country, especially since these guys have gone so long without doing it, yeah, I think in the NHL, more than maybe other leagues, like you say, it would just mean that much.
I don't want to beat this dead horse much more than I already have, but I feel like the perfect balance is to do it like once every 4 years. Don't worry about Four Nations Cup. Don't worry about something every 2 years, because my worry is if they do it too often, and they've done this before, it starts to lose some of its luster. Do you have a take on how often we should see the international best on best? I think 4 years is the perfect number.
No, I don't. Look, we've been so devoid of that best on best for well over a decade that I'm saying I want every 2 years. Like, my greatest memory as a sports fan when I was younger was I got to promise myself to stop using years because it makes me so old. But the 1987 Canada Cup, I was 17 years old, and I was in the stands when Lemieux scored the goal. God, I hope you know the goal I'm talking about.
The Gretzky to Lemieux?
Yes, thank you. I knew you did. I'm just
and Larry,
kidding, but
who was trailing? The defenseman?
Larry Murphy, the wheelman.
There you go. I didn't know if you'd get that or not. So
okay, God bless you.
I think Howard Chuck was on the ice too.
Yeah, and I still to this day say Lemieux should have passed it to Murphy. I swear to God, he should have passed. It was the higher percentage play, but then again, if you got the puck on the stick of the greatest player at the time, well, the greatest goal scorer at the time, and still maybe the greatest goal scorer. We could have that argument later, but you let Mario Lemieux shoot the puck, and it was the right choice. But anyway, my point is the Canada Cup, World Cup. I know some people, it shocked me when people last year were thinking the Four Nations was going to be like hokey or some kind of, just some ridiculous made up thing. I knew from the start when they announced that this was going to be huge. And I think if they do it every 2 years where it's 8 cities or 8 teams, I think it'll be amazing. So I like to do it every 2 years. Every 4 years, it's the NHL that runs it. And every 4 years, it's the IIHF that runs it. I'm okay with both of those.
Yeah, I always felt like they just got really lucky because the political climate fell the way it did. But I think you're right. It had been so long since we'd had a best on best. It would have been a big deal regardless. But either or.
Yeah, it was so good. It was so good. And I'm with you. Like, the politics really ramped it up. Like, it was a perfect storm of things that came together. Canada versus USA, all the vitriol, the politics. But at the end of the day, what sustained it all was incredible hockey that you couldn't take your eyes off of.
Right, for sure. I was looking online. You feel like Drew Doughty needs to be on this roster? Why?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I had a good one-on-one with him last week when we were in LA, and he's one of only 3 guys who were on the team the last time Canada had an Olympic team, and it was him, Crosby, and Tavares. And I don't think Tavares is going to be there this time, but I think being there before counts for something. He's one of the most decorated players in the history of hockey. 2 Stanley Cups, 2 Olympic gold medals, World Junior. He's won Norris, been 4-time Norris Trophy finalist. Like, he's been there, done that. He's not rattled by the situation. They're not putting him on the top 2 pairings. He's a 3rd pairing shutdown guy. And I still think that the experience he brings, there's so many other things that he brings that I think other guys can't. And he's versatile, too. If they really needed to, he could run a power play. I'm not sure you want him to, but he could still do it if you had to. He can kill penalties, block shots, and that guy's as competitive as anyone in the NHL. He'll bleed to death just to win this thing. So I think he should be in there. I said, look, I'm only going to counter by saying you're 36 years old. And he's like, I know, man, I'm old. I get it. But I also have a lot more experience than anybody else on the team, and that counts for something, too. So. And I watched him last week when we were in LA with Calgary, and I still think he's got it at a high level.
I think Scott Niedermayer played in Vancouver in 2010, and he was probably at that age 37, 38, or in that year. I'd have to go look it up again just to fact check myself there. But I think there's an argument to be made. The older players can find a little bit of adrenaline to ratchet it up for 10 days or whatever they have to in those international tournaments. They're not punching a time
That's right.
clock. So
I agree. And last year, he joined that 4 Nations tournament. He'd only played 6 games after having his ankle mangled, as he put it. And he played 6 games and played like 27 minutes a night to show Hockey Canada, I still can do this. And I don't think he was out of place at the 4 Nations. I don't think anybody would argue that he was. And I actually think all 7 defensemen from that tournament should be on the Olympic team as well. And I'm pretty sure all 7 will. They can bring 8. So I think those 7, and we could argue all day long who the 8 should be, but I think I think he should be a lock.
One more guy I wanted to ask you about, Macklin Celebrini. Why do you feel like he needs to be on the roster?
He's the most exciting player in hockey right now. That's a little disrespectful to Nathan McKinnon and Connor McDavid, who still put on a show every time they touch the puck. But this kid, you can't take your eyes off him. Like the game I was in San Jose with just the other night, 4 points, maybe the best goal I've seen all year. It was a bit of a fluky goal the way it went in, but the move he made to get into the clear, a spinorama going backwards. This kid does it all. And if you talk to anybody in the league, like, he's a 200-foot player. I wouldn't argue that Connor Bedard, even if he was healthy, I would not argue for him to be on the team at all, because he doesn't have the 200-foot game. He doesn't have the speed. He doesn't have the work ethic, the tenacity, all the ingredients that Macklin Celebrini has. Celebrini is going to be the best player in hockey for a lot of years. He's not maybe right now, but he's right on the cusp, and he's going to take that mantle for a long time. And I got to tell you, that's exciting because he is a hell of an ambassador for this game. He's always wearing a beautiful smile. He's patient with the media. I think he's, good-looking kid. I think he's got everything that the NHL wants. The only problem is he's buried in San Jose. We need to get him into a prominent market, but I guess that's not going to happen.
Could be worse. He could be buried with my Canucks. I'll get to that in a moment. But Craig Conroy, I know they announced his extension as GM. And look, I don't think anybody blames him for the fact the team hasn't risen again to relevance since he's been the GM. He's only been the GM for a short time. That said, how much runway does he have, do you think? I know you want to give him time to conduct a proper rebuild. The arena's coming. I've heard him make comments about he would love to be able to even just take possible free agents down the street and show them that the arena is being built, but it wasn't far enough along yet. Do you have a timetable in your mind where the team has to start winning again before people start to get impatient with the management like they always do?
Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone's trying to, everyone's pointing to the opening of the arena. You want a genuine excitement about the team and the direction they're heading when they're opening a new building and trying to sell tickets to this fancy new thing that's clearly going to cost a lot of money ticket-wise. So ideally, that's the timeline. Look, they're not going to rebuild. I mean, they're retooling on the fly. I always call it the hybrid rebuild, the high build, I call it. And that's what they're sticking with, for better or worse. It frustrates a lot of people in this city that they're not leaning into the terrible start they have. People in this city, there are still probably 50% of the fans that cringe every time they win. But right now they're on a pretty good clip. They're one of the hottest teams in the NHL right now. So you say, when will they start winning? I mean, I know that this little spurt doesn't really matter over the last 15 games, but, they need to, you want them to be a contender is what you're saying, or at least a team that's not just going to squeak into the playoffs, which is what the goal's always been around here for 20 years. You want them to go into the season being a team that people are like, wait, they could do some damage. That's probably 3 or 4 years away, and at the very least. And Conroy's got 2 more years after this year to that's the runway he's been given. And, we'll see where they're at that point. If they're still, I still think they're on an upwards trajectory. And I think that's the important thing. Everyone knew they weren't going to be a contender this year, but as long as they keep moving forward, people are generally content. Although with the little scare we got at the beginning of the year at how bad they were, people were talking McKenna a lot about it around here. It was pretty funny.
Well, I have to say, I grew up with open hostility toward Alberta and their sports teams because I remember the West Final in the 90s. It was Edmonton at Calgary, Edmonton at Calgary, Calgary at Edmonton. It was just nonstop. And the NHL teams were really good in the early 90s. So I know that history has been made these last few years with both Alberta teams missing the playoffs last year. Both Alberta Canada West football teams missing the playoffs these last 2 years, which I cover. And I have to admit that I'm enjoying it a little bit just because of the environment I grew up in when all my friends were moving to Alberta. And I almost came to Alberta, but I'm embarrassed to admit I had almost 20 speeding tickets by the time I was 22. So my auto insurance was going to ramp up. That's what kept me out of Alberta. But do you sometimes feel like the bar has been lowered a little bit from where it used to be with these Alberta teams?
Well, look, I mean, the Oilers have been in the final the last 2 years. That's not, and they still have a lofty goal to try to live up to this year, and it's going to be awfully tough, I think, for them to do that. But, the bar's certainly been low for Calgary for a long, long time. When we had that Battle of Alberta, was it 4 years ago now?
Great series, I remember that. Well, the matchup was good. I know it was only a 5-game series, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like, and it was so exciting because it had been, I think, 30 years since the last one. And I remember writing stories about the last one and Theo Fleury and all this, and people were so excited. And the feeling then was that this is something that we could be looking forward to for the next handful of years because both teams were really on the up and up. And then Tkachuk left, and Gaudreau left, and then Lindholm left, and Hanifin left, and the list goes on. And now the Flames are in a significant retool. So it could be a long, long time before those two are both contenders. Right now, one clearly still is, one clearly still isn't.
Yeah, I think the reference to my conversation actually had very little relevance to the NHL. I was more around the football, I guess, because like you said, the Oilers are still not too bad. And I'm always cheering against the Oilers not to win in the finals. Not that I don't want them to succeed or anything like that, but I'm probably like the people in Calgary. I want my team to be the one that ends the 30-some-year drought. And the one thing I was going to ask you about before we let you go, the Canucks. Like when I was young around the Christmas table, my Uncle Bob, God rest his soul, was a huge Toronto Maple Leafs fan. And we would mock him nonstop. We'd come up with things to mock the Leafs about, and he was always a good sport about it. And I'm the Canuck fan because I grew up a Vancouver fan, even though I barely follow them anymore. But it's almost like I'm the butt of all the jokes about what's happening to the Canucks. Whether I like it or not, I'm stuck with them. I can't get rid of them even if I wanted to. And I asked this question to Farhan in the first hour, and you have a little more distance from the situation because you don't live in Vancouver. We've heard the stories about players having Winnipeg on their no trade clause around the league. We've heard stories about how players didn't want to go to Edmonton. That was before McDavid and before the new arena and everything else. And I'm sure Calgary has had those issues. I remember in the 90s and et cetera.
Sure.
Do you think that Vancouver has a problem with that? Just being the fact that they're on the West Coast, they're so far north, they've probably got as bad a travel schedule as just about anybody, and you never see the sun in the wintertime. It just rains and rains and rains. Do you think those are real issues?
Yeah, and right now they've got a real culture issue, in that dressing room. That's been a mess. They traded the wrong guy last year, and there's a whole bunch of issues going on there. But it's a gorgeous city, and it's a world-class city. You're right, it's dark in the winter, and it rains a lot. I don't know how many people are putting it on their no-trade list, but if they do, I would say one of the number one reasons would be the scrutiny, the media. There always seems to be a firestorm there. And whether it's, self-made in that dressing room and the team is to blame, or if it's a combination of the team being pretty dysfunctional and the media just taking that and going nuts with it. And the fan base is pretty rabid too, don't get me wrong. They haven't burned anything for a while as far as I know, but at least, online and stuff, they're a pretty scary mob. So I think that is one of the things that a lot of guys want to steer clear of. But generally speaking, I would say I have not heard of a lot of players who would, like a lot of players have about 10-team no-trade list. I'd be pretty surprised if a lot of guys had Vancouver on a list that small.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a great city, and I even heard with NBA players, they didn't like it, but near the end, some of them actually spent a lot of time back in Vancouver and say, no, we liked it. That was all overdone. I guess it's like anywhere else. If you're winning, that fixes everything, and they just have to fix all their other internal issues. Hey, this has been lots of fun. Have a Merry Christmas and enjoy some time away from the rink, will you?
Yeah, you too. Good chat, and we'll talk in the new year.
Good
Happy
stuff.
holidays.
Yes, same to you. That is Eric Francis from Sportsnet, our NHL insider, joining us here on the program. And, of course, you can read all his stuff and more at sportsnet.ca. He has a lot of good stuff, not just about the Calgary Flames, but just about the NHL in general. We will be back with more of Hour 2 of the Sports Cage. Still ahead, we will hear from Regina Pats rookie Maddax Schultz on the Sportscage YouTube channel and on the almighty Voice of Saskatchewan 620 CKRM.
Get ready to cheer on some serious young talent. It's the Play 92 Art Auction with McBid's Auctioneers and McMotor Sales. 2 local school classes are going head-to-head in a friendly art showdown, all to raise funds for Creative Kids Saskatchewan, the charity that helps kids access life-changing creative experiences in theater, art, dance, heritage, and music. Their artwork is proudly displayed at the Connexus Art Center's Winter Wonderland, and you can bid on your favorites at mcbids.ca. All proceeds support creative kids. Harvard Media is proud to support. All items will be sold December 29th.
Proven by countless farmers, 900 Series fence sprayers set the standard for your crops, and it's available at Nick's Service in Emerald Park. Featuring 370 horsepower, 132-foot boom, 1,580-gallon tank, smart drive 4-wheel steering, and liquid logic recirculating boom, the 900 Series fence sprayers are backed by a 3-year, 2,000-hour Gold Star warranty. Leaders drive Fendt. To learn more about making your crops successful, visit Nick's Service today, nickservice.com.
What's going on in the markets? When is the right time to invest? What should you do with your money today? When Doug had questions, he talked to Brian Golly.
He's always there to answer your questions, and if he's not there, he gets back to you very shortly. You never know when you got a concern. When it comes to your portfolio, sometimes waiting is torture.
Don't guess with your money this RRSP season.
I would definitely recommend Brian because he's done well for us.
Call Brian Golly at Smart Investing Solutions, 546-2533.
Since 1949, Nelson Homes has been providing you one-stop shopping for ready-to-move homes, panelized packages, and on-site builds. Nelson Homes' team of authorized dealers all over Saskatchewan would be happy to help you turn your dream home into a reality.
In the Saskatoon area, call Kurt at Canadian Timber Homes.
Or call 1-800-661-6534 for more information. Nelson Homes, trusted quality and service since 1949.
Out here in southern Saskatchewan, the sun shows up for work every day. Might as well make it earn its keep.
That's where Keln Solar comes in. These folks travel all over the province helping people put solar on their homes, farms, and cabins. They're local guys, Sask-born, Sask-raised, and not going anywhere. Except, to your place. Now's the time to start planning for spring and summer 2026 bookings. Give Keln Solar a call and they'll come show you your best options. Keln Solar. They move the power so you don't have to. KelnSolar.com.
The Sportscage Clutch Performer for Nick's Service in Emerald Park. Your local Massey Ferguson Challenger, Rogator, Gleaner, and Fendt dealer. Call 781-1077.
And for the Nick's Service in Emerald Park Clutch Performer, we got a nice little segue at the end of our last segment with Eric Francis. He said that last year the Canucks traded the wrong guy, and I think he was referring to JT Miller, now with the New York Rangers, and he just so happens to be our choice for the Clutch Performer.
With his overtime winner.
Play the puck, winds it around for Gavrikov. Suter all over the Ranger defenseman. As Gavrikov leaves for Trocheck. Back into the St. Louis zone. Trocheck for JT Miller. Miller shoots, he scores! Miller does it again! His third overtime goal of the season!
And he is our Clutch Performer for Nick's Service in Emerald Park, your local Massey Ferguson Challenger, Rogator, Gleaner, and Fendt dealer. Call 781-1077.
Another Clutch Performer we could give out, everyone that's plowing the streets right now, city workers or not, it's appreciated.
Tegan Whitco told me before she left, her fiance texted, said North Courtney Street is a disaster. So some of the roads out there still a disaster, and that's just because of the weather. Everybody's doing a great job. In my infinite wisdom, I didn't snowblow the driveway. I just didn't want to face it, so I plowed my little car through it. And lucky for me, because then it snowed again. So then I would have had to clear twice, and now I'm only doing it once.
Not wrong. I did clear it.
More than just a pretty face here.
I did clear it this morning for our walk-in driveway, but we had packages and stuff showing up, so I figured I would be nice for the delivery guys and clear it. And now I don't have as much to clear when I have to do it again tonight. So there's two sides to the coin, right? But
beautiful. Okay. Do we need to take another break, or do we go right into our next one?
Take a quick break.
We'll take a quick break. When we come back, Regina Pats rookie Maddax Schultz. You are watching the Sportscage on our YouTube channel at Sportscage, and also the almighty voice of Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM.
So since that little ding on my car last week, I don't know where to take it.
I don't even know.
That's easy. Take it to Regina Motor Products.
Who said that?
I did. Down here. I'm Terry the Tire. Regina Motor Products Chevrolet Collision Center and SGI accredited auto body repair is a full-service collision and body shop that works on all makes and models. Just submit your claim to SGI and set an appointment to get your appraisal done. Easy.
I bet you're tired after saying all that.
South at Highway 1 and 6, Albert Street. RMPChevrolet.com.
Since 1949, Nelson Homes has been providing you one-stop shopping for ready-to-move homes, panelized packages, and on-site builds. Nelson Homes' team of authorized dealers all over Saskatchewan would be happy to help you turn your dream home into a reality. In the Saskatoon area, call Kurt at Canadian Timber Homes or call 1-800-661-6534 for more information. Nelson Homes, trusted quality and service since 1949.
Welcome back to Sportscage. Get social with us. Follow us on X at Sportscage. Watch our video stream at sportscage.com and always on the radio at 620 CKRM.
Brendan McGuire and Colson Schultz with you on this Friday edition of the Sports Cage. And still ahead in Hour 3, we will hear from John Hodge with 3 Down Nation, talk about some of the contracts being signed in the CFL. Some player position groups are getting money that we've never seen before. And also, I know it's not quite as sexy as some of the numbers you see in the NFL, NHL, etc., but it's still pretty good living for some of these athletes. And we will check in with Dante Caria from the Regina Pats and also the Regina Red Sox. But right now we're going to head out on the Western Pizza guest hotline and talk a little bit of Pats with their rookie, Maddax Schultz, who is on the Christmas break. The Pats have started their Christmas break. What do you do with all this time off over the Christmas break? I mean, do you stay off the ice? Do you try to get on the ice every day? What does that look like?
Yeah, our Regina Pats Canadians U18 team is actually going to the Circle K Classic this year. So we leave the 26th Boxing Day as a team, and we're really looking forward to the tournament. So I think we practice 2 or 3 times before that.
I know you love the sport and you live for the sport, but do you ever get moments where you get hockeyed out? You're playing for 2 teams, you're practicing, you got a lot going on with school, everything else. Do you ever get those moments where you just need to stay off the ice for a day or 2?
I don't think so. No, I can't imagine a life without hockey. It's I do it every day. Watch it every day. So huge part of my life, and I don't know what I would do without it.
Did you were you brought into it by other people in your family, or has it always been your thing?
Well, my parents were figure skaters, and they evolved and became figure skating coaches. But they kind of introduced the sport to me. Introduced skating to me, and then kind of just put a stick in my hand, and the rest is history.
You just figured it out on your own, because I've got a 4-year-old who I'm teaching to skate right now, and it wasn't going so well, and then I got one of those little skate aids, and that's going a little bit better. But at what age, do you know what age you were when you were skating on your own?
Yes, I think I was 3, obviously with the help of some parents and some aunts and uncles. But I think 4, I started playing hockey in a league. So yeah, pretty young.
Is there and I won't let you pick, I know I'm putting you on the spot, I won't let you pick any of your teammates on the Pats today, but along the way, has there been a teammate who you think back and you say, wow, I really learned a lot from that guy?
Like on the Pats right now, or like
no, not including the Pats right now, because I don't want them getting salty, any of them, that you didn't pick them. I'm thinking before the Pats. Is there anybody, any time throughout your youth who's been a teammate, whether it was U10 or U12, whatever, that you think back and say, I'm glad I had him as a teammate and I learned a lot from him?
Yeah, I don't remember a lot of my teammates. I was in Medicine Hat when I first started skating, so it was a while ago. And then when I moved to Regina, obviously watching Sam Steele on the Pats, a few of those guys who are now playing in the NHL, playing at the higher level. I got to meet a few of those guys. Pretty special moment when I was that young. And then I consider Regina my home, so watching all those guys play for the Pats was something special.
I know when Connor Bedard came and played for the Pats, he was far away from home, and his parents came and stayed with him, and that made it a lot easier. Have you ever thought about how much harder this would be if you had been drafted by a team other than the Pats or Moose Jaw Warriors or a team nearby?
Yeah, obviously living at home is something I'll be super grateful for. Living even right now, I'm in my own house. So, it feels good just to be around my parents and around my close family. So, super lucky to be drafted by them and playing the barn that I grew up watching in.
What is the biggest thing that you have to do differently when you're playing with the WHL team as opposed to the Pat Cs when you're playing at a different level?
Yeah, the Pats playing the WHL and super good league. Super fast, filled with tons of great players, and I think you need to bring your A game every time you play at that level. There are players who are bigger, faster, and stronger for that matter that want to just compete their bag off every night. So I think you got to be ready for that. Obviously, when you play for the midget team, you played for them. I played for them last year, so kind of just got some experience. When I go down and play for them this year, but obviously when I go up and play for the Regina Pats, it's very fun and just got to bring your A game.
As a casual hockey fan, I had never heard the name Maddax Schultz until the end of last year, and now I hear it a little more regularly. Do you feel like you're getting more attention now because of the fact that you've been drafted by the Pats and are playing for them?
Yeah, I think attention's going to come. Right now, I'm just trying to focus on playing the game I love. Hockey's everything to me, and just playing it the right way and playing it the way I know I can is, the biggest thing for me right now. And all the stuff that follows, that's just going to come with it.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they changed the rules where at your age you could only do 5 games, and now you can do up to half a season. Is that the plan? Are you expected to play with the Pats and Patsies for the rest of the year, or are there going to be select games that you are not with the big club?
Yeah, it's kind of a hybrid model. This 34 games thing. I thought me and Liam did a great job taking advantage of it. It's pretty cool to play on 2 teams, having 40-some teammates, making new friendships along the way too. But it's a development year for me and Liam. And, I think we've been doing a good job handling, all the pressure and, the tiredness of it so far. I think, the Pats have been doing a great job of, managing our schedule and, doing everything they can to help me and Liam. And it's been great so far.
That's, I alluded to it at the start of the interview, but you're playing on 2 teams, and on one of the teams, there's a pretty rugged travel schedule, as we know, in the Western Hockey League. I remember I spent a year riding the bus with the Windsor Spitfires, and they were always thankful that they didn't have to play in the Western League, because everybody knows the Western League is the toughest, just because of the geography out here, and you've got to balance your schoolwork with that as well. Does it ever feel overwhelming at times trying to juggle so much?
Yeah, that's the Western Hockey League for you. I think, it's an unbelievable league. It really prepares you for higher levels. When you look at the OHL, everything's fairly close together. And even then, when you're playing in the O, you have to manage schoolwork and the slight travel. But then when you come to the Western League, you're traveling, more than that, and having school on top of it. So, it's definitely not for the weak. And thankful to be, playing in such a high level league.
I'm curious because I know in a few years, if you have the opportunity to move up to another level yet, you'll be happy with, or probably happy, I shouldn't speak for you, wherever you would end up. But who's your NHL team? Who's the team that you've grown up cheering for?
Yeah, the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, such special players who play on that team. My dad actually got me into them. Right from the womb. We've been watching Oilers games ever since I was really young. And they've pretty diehard, and they've grown to be my team. So yeah.
They've had trouble getting players wanting to go there in the past, but they would never have that problem with you ever in the future.
Yeah, I'd hope not. Would be cool to play for them one day, but long way down the road.
Well, who knows? Maybe they'll be the team to break the Canadian streak, the Canadian drought that they keep talking about on all those beer commercials. Maybe you will help the Pats get into the playoffs by the end of the season. I know it's going to be a dogfight the rest of the way. Thanks for taking some time for us today, and good luck the rest of the season, and enjoy some time off over the Christmas holidays before you have to get on the road on Boxing Day again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, that is Regina Pats rookie Maddax Schultz joining us on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. It's the pizza that's known worldwide for a reason, loaded with toppings of Western Canadian ingredients and always cooked to perfection. And just very interesting. I think about what I was doing at age 15, and it was nothing anywhere near as impressive or productive what a lot of these younger players are doing. And I remember when I did have the good fortune of covering the Ontario Hockey League, it was the year that John Tavares was doing the same thing that Maddax Schultz is doing right now at age 15, except he was playing for the Oshawa Generals, and everybody was making Johnny T, do we call him that? John Tavares to be the next, like Sidney Crosby. And of course, that didn't pan out, but it's just unbelievable what they have to do, juggling, like I said. We forget that these are just kids, and they have to juggle their schoolwork, and they have to play on 2 high-level clubs. And I can just imagine getting used to all the attention is part of it. I remember John Paddock saying on this very program that he thought when Connor Bedard left the Pats, it would be easier for him because he'd actually get less attention once he moved up to the NHL level. So I don't know if that has happened, but I can't imagine that he was ever mobbed or has ever been mobbed in the NHL the way he was mobbed here. And the same thing was true with Jordan Eberle. So it's all part of the process. And in the past, I remember when Rod Peterson used to be the voice of the Regina Pats, and he would have people on this station all the time, and they'd be talking about the Pats, and they weren't very good, and they didn't have a product to get excited about. That's not the case right now with the Pats. They're out on the outside looking in, but they are within striking distance to get into the postseason. And with some of these younger players like Maddax, Schultz, and Liam Pugh, I know that a lot of people who follow the league much more closely than I do are expecting that they're going to get in, or they're at least going to have a fighting chance and actually be an entertaining team to watch and put up a fight in that first round of the postseason. We'll kick it around a little bit more with Dante to Caria later in hour 3. I also want to talk with him about the Regina Red Sox and what's happening in the Western Canada Baseball League. You're listening to the Sports Cage on the YouTube channel at Sportscage or on the Voice of Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM.
Take a trip down memory lane. Weekdays at 1 o'clock with Colin Lovequist. Number Ones at 1. A full hour of country's greatest hits and the stories behind them. We'll take a look back at musical milestones, celebrate some country music birthdays, and a whole lot more. It's all brought to you by McBids and North Home Windows in Foam Lake. Number Ones at 1 with Colin Lovequist on the Voice of Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM.
When you sit down to play with Bodog.net, you won't even need a seat, just the edge of it. That's all you need to live every fiery bonus round of our new slot game, Crystals on Fire. Light up your gameplay with every dazzling reward. Feel the thrill of collecting every crystal, sparkling jackpots, and setting the stage for every explosive win. Live sports odds, poker tips, and free-to-play casino games. Bodog.net. Make a play.
Get it hot and get it fast. Western Pizza.
Holiday season is here, and let's be honest, who wants to cook? Skip the stress. Grab takeout from Western Pizza and keep everyone happy without lifting a finger. And here's a tip. Western Pizza gift cards make the perfect stocking stuffer or last-minute gift. Warm, cheesy, loaded with toppings. It's the gift everyone actually wants. Western Pizza. Dine in or take out today, before your stomach sends out a holiday memo.
And get it hot and get it fast. Western Pizza.
Holiday shopping's fun, but holiday winning, well, that's next level. Extreme Hockey's 12 Days of Christmas giveaways are on. Any purchase from now until the 24th enters you to win big. Gift cards, mystery minis, Yeti packages, custom Bauer sticks, Peak Hockey packs, and more. Over $10,000 in prizes. Get your gear and maybe a little extra under the tree. Extreme Hockey and Sport, 1425 McIntyre Street, conveniently located at the Cooperator Center and online at extremehockey.net.
It's time for the Sports Ticker, brought to you by Extreme Hockey and Sport, Regina's locally owned one-stop hockey shop. Now with a price match guarantee, 1425 McIntyre Street.
And time for the Sports Ticker, and just one game in the Western Hockey League tonight. The Kelowna Rockets visiting the Prince Albert Raiders. Special thanks to Maddax Schultz joining us on the Western Pizza Hotline. Forgot to ask him about his first goal the other night. SJHL games tonight. Estevan's at Yorkton. Melville Millionaires visit the Weyburn Red Wings. Nipawin Hawks at Melfort Mustangs. L'Orange Ice Wolves at home to the Flin Flon Bombers. The Warman Wolverines, formerly the Notre Dame Hounds, at the Humboldt Broncos. Also some Sask Male U18 AAA. Tisdale Trojans at Saskatoon Blazers. And Sask Female U18 AAA. Saskatoon Stars at Regina Rebels. Grand Slam of Curling. The Hearing Life Canadian Open is in Saskatoon this weekend. Some of the top teams in the world are converging, and that goes today through Sunday. There is one draw that's just in the middle of it, and then one more draw later today. You can find the complete schedule and the results on their website at www.thegrandslamofcurling.com. NHL games tonight. My Canucks visiting the New York Islanders and the Winnipeg Jets. On the road to play the Colorado Avalanche. Boy, the Jets have just been trying to hold water and survive since the injury of their goaltender, Connor Hellbuck. I felt like maybe they could be the team to end the Canadian drought in the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm a big Canuck fan, but I have a soft spot for the Habs and the Jets. I'd be fine with any one of those teams winning, just as long as it's not the Maple Leafs. I digress. The Sportscage.com poll, which position group do you think the Saskatchewan Roughriders should focus on re-signing? Vote at Sportscage.com. Still ahead in hour 3, we will check in with John Hodge from 3 Down Nation, also now part of the Harvard Media family. We'll talk about that. And Dante Caria from the Regina Pats and Regina Red Sox, still ahead on this edition of the Sports Cage. One thing I wanted to talk a little bit about, too, is Stuart Johnson, the commissioner, went on a podcast with Luke Wilson this last week. Now, I'm not Luke Wilson's biggest fan. It seems like Luke likes to be nice to people on his social media, whoever is kissing up to him, and he likes to go after people who aren't kissing up to him. But a lot of his analysis is accurate. He does know his stuff about the sport and even about the Canadian Football League. And when he was talking with Stu Johnson, it got a little bit of attention that Stu wants to have a 10th team within 5 years. That's hardly new. They've been talking about that forever. There's a Grey Cup pregame show from 50 years ago where the great Ernie Affiganis goes on and on about how great it would be if one day we had a CFL team in Halifax. So this is not a new concept. I actually think a really effective counterpunch for the CFL to what the NFL has would be to copy what they've done on Saturdays. But the kicker is they need to get to not 10 teams, but 12 teams. You could do that by adding a franchise in the Maritimes. We'll talk about logistics later. Adding a franchise in Quebec City. And then franchise number 12 is not where you might think in Saskatoon or Victoria or some of these other dumb ideas, but Southern Ontario. I think London would be the perfect space. And I've lived in Southern Ontario. That's how I know this. London is a good solid 2 hours plus from the border at Detroit. They're a solid 2 hours plus from Toronto in the other direction. And they're a good solid 2 hours away from Buffalo. They are on their own. And their population is approaching 500,000 people. But the region, I want to say it's Lambton County, not Lambton, Kent County. There's a county around it, which is about another close to 500,000 people. So they have the population base that we have in Saskatchewan within an hour's drive, and they all cling to things that are London. You have the London Knights major junior team. So if you get to 12 franchises, or the London Knights, I was going to say, regularly draw 8,000-9,000 people a night. To me, if you can do that for an OHL team, you can probably support a CFL team that needs 20,000 people 10 times a year. So if you get to 12 franchises, you can copy what the NFL has done in many ways in the fall. The NFL has Monday nights and Thursday nights. CFL has Friday nights, so nothing changes there. The NFL has Sundays, so it's incumbent upon the CFL to move in and take Saturdays. And not the way they're taking Saturdays right now, because they have a very limited stock of inventory that they can offer. They have sometimes a doubleheader, sometimes a tripleheader. But you don't have that flipping experience. See, as a hardcore football junkie, I love the fact that I can watch every game and they don't overlap. But I don't know that that's been very good for the business. There's something about the viewing experience to having multiple games at once. So if you get to those 12 teams, you can take the exact same time slots on Saturdays that the NFL takes on Sundays. You have your 11 a.m. Saskatchewan time slot, and then 2 p.m. Saskatchewan time. You'd have two CFL games in both slots, and then you have the Saturday night game, which is the primetime game. You can do that throughout the month of September and then the first half of October as well. You can tell I put a lot of thought into this, Colson. And then each Saturday, you also tack on 2 really juicy primetime U Sport matchups. So like if Laval and Montreal are playing, they're going to be part of it. If the Panda Bowl in Ottawa is happening where they sell out like 25,000 people, guess what? That's going to be part of it. You're going to go heavy on Ontario games. You're going to get some of our great Canada West games part of it. But either way, you want to make sure that you have 3 games happening simultaneously at the same time for people to be able to flip around, because that is a big part of what makes the NFL what the NFL is. the smorgasbord of turning on the game that you know you're going to find a good storyline, and if the game you are watching isn't one that you like particularly, you can go flip to another one. And that would lead to the creation of Red Zone TV. And if the production costs for a CFL caliber game are $100,000, which is what I'm led to believe, that is peanuts in the grand scheme of things if Rogers or any one of these broadcast giants, even Bell Media, wants to partake. But to me, that would be a way to get more of the gamblers and more of the younger people part of this habit that on Saturdays, that's just what Canadians do in September. They watch Canadian football. And by adding those 3 franchises, you're also touching 3 regions that are somewhat heavily populated, that are not very engaged in the Canadian Football League right now. I don't get the vibe that outside of Montreal, Quebec is overly engaged with the CFL, even though it is very much a football province. I don't get the vibe that the Maritimes is very engaged, but they might be if they have their own franchise. Southern Ontario, I couldn't believe it because I knew they had no interest in the CFL or very little interest in the CFL, and yet they are very much engaged with youth sport. I lived in Windsor, Ontario for a hockey season, and they were very much into the Windsor Lancers. If you build it, they will come. And if you have franchises in those 3 regions, that would help you grow the pot enough that instead of dividing it 9 ways, you can divide it 12 ways, and would make a world of difference if you're trying to counterpunch what the NFL has built. And Saturdays are still there for the taking. It's not Canadians are not overly in love with American college football. Will that ever change? It'll never change for me. I don't find American college football that interesting. But if they ever get their you-know-what together with American college football and they get some semblance of competitive balance, that could change. And it would also be great for the college football being played in Canada as well. And right now, the Canadian Football League is a business of an industry between $200 and $300 million. The NFL is around $24 billion. So the CFL today is roughly 1% of what the National Football League is. If they could get to 2% or 3% of what the NFL is, that would be massive and such a game changer where you could see even star players getting guaranteed contracts so that players would actually choose, some players would choose the CFL over the NFL. That's a long-term blueprint. Logistics of how to get there and get those franchises, that's another discussion for another day. But you have to start somewhere and you have to have some kind of a vision. And that would be a really nice vision for the CFL to become something bigger and better than they already are today. Okay, I wanted to get to that and I finally did. We will be back with Hour 3 next. You are listening and watching the Sportscage on the YouTube channel at Sportscage and on the radio at the almighty 620 CKRM.
This is 620 CKRM, a Harvard media station. Available everywhere in high-res audio with the CKRM app.
Good evening, it's 5 o'clock. From the sasktoday.ca newsroom, here's your 620 CKRM news for Echo Sound and for Qu'Appelle. Stay connected with the new cell phone from Echo Sound. Call 306-332-6711. A worker who died in an underground potash mine in Saskatchewan this week has been identified as a loving father and active union member. Unifor says Tyrone McLeod was a mine operator at the Mosaic Company's K3 mine near Esterhazy. The 41-year-old leaves behind a wife and 2 daughters. The union says the province's Ministry of Labour Relations and Workplace Safety is investigating the death, and Unifor is asking to be part of the process. A note from callers about an incident near the number 10 turnoff from the Trans-Canada Highway near Balgonie. Multiple incidents with a semi block traffic and other vehicles are off the road. Stay away and avoid the area if you can, or even better, stay home if you don't have to travel in that area. Most of Regina's outdoor skating rinks are now open, marking the start of another winter skating season in the city. 40 rinks are ready for use, including the downtown site in Victoria Park. Ice crews continue prepping additional locations, which will open as soon as conditions improve. The outdoor rink season typically runs from December through late February, depending on weather and ice quality. New figures show Saskatchewan farmers delivered record crop production in 2025, totaling 41.9 million metric tons. That output is nearly 14% higher than last year and well above the recent average. Spring wheat and canola accounted for the largest volumes, with canola and lentils both reaching record levels. Provincial officials say growth in key crops reflects improved yields and producer adaptation. Statistics Canada gathered the data through post-harvest surveys completed by thousands of farmers across Saskatchewan during an October to November study following the end of the growing season after challenging winter conditions earlier this year. Retail sales data for October shows the holiday shopping season got off to a muted start.
Statistics Canada reports retail sales fell 0.2% in October as sales in 4 of the 9 subsectors it tracks were down. However, the agency's estimate for November pointed to a rebound of 1.2%. TD Economics says the holiday shopping season got off to a flat start and that despite November's potential rise, underlying trends are still weak. TD says only a handful of discretionary categories like clothing and electronics continue to show positive momentum. Michelle Zedekian, The Canadian Press.
And the head of Canada's largest private sector union says she's glad to be putting this year behind her, but next year will present a whole new set of daunting challenges. Unifor National President Lana Payne says trade uncertainty has dominated the year, and while the economy might look better than feared, there are many hurting.
While the macro numbers might look a certain way, I would say beneath the surface of those numbers are some very, very serious problems, particularly in the industrial part of Canada's economy.
Trade issues will also loom next year as Unifor works through contract talks that cover close to a third of its members, including workers at the Detroit 3 automakers. That was your 620 CKRM News. Read more stories from around your community and around the province at sasktoday.ca and 620ckrm.com. Weather is next.
This holiday season, in the red corner, weighing in at jolly and unstoppable, it's Santa Claus.
Santa's laying the smackdown on slow internet and bad cell coverage. Because at Echo Sound, your SaskTel authorized dealer, the deals are off the ropes. Get the latest cell phone, SaskTel MaxStream, and lightning fast internet that'll make your holidays legendary. So tag in the pros at Echo Sound, your SaskTel authorized dealer in Fort Qu'Appelle. EchoSound.ca.
And this weather forecast is brought to you by Line X Regina, Serious Protection Killer Looks, 1865 McCarra Street, and Croft Electric, 27 years of trusted, reliable home, farm, and commercial service for all electrical needs. CroftElectric.com and all socials.
Blowing snow advisory remains in effect, but the steadiest precipitation is done, and we'll be looking at gusty winds laying down as we head through the overnight hours with improved travel conditions during the overnight. Surface high pressure will become a bit more dominant by the second half of the weekend, and we do see warming temperatures by Sunday afternoon as well, although readings will still stay a little bit below normal until we get into Monday, which promises to be a seasonable day. Again, it's a blowing snow advisory. Isolated flurries tonight down to minus 24. West and northwest winds will gust to 60 early tonight. Extensive blowing and drifting snow. 30% chance of flurries. Partly sunny at times, minus 20 tomorrow. West and northwest winds at 15 to 25. Mainly clear Saturday night, minus 25. Mostly sunny Sunday at minus 12. Partly sunny on Monday, minus 9. And partly sunny, minus 10 on Tuesday. With your 620 CKRM Precision Weather Forecast, I'm meteorologist Russ Murley.
Dan from Croft Electric explains why he is passionate about doing rural electrical work.
We are rural. I live on an acreage. I have 5 horses. I ride horses every weekend. We're rural. We want to be the one you think of when you're looking around your yard and you see something that's not electrically not right. We will come to your farm, wherever it is.
Croft Electric.
Do it right. Do it once.
CroftElectric.com.
For 40 years, the team from Line X Regina has been protecting vehicles across Saskatchewan, and we're changing with the times. 3 generations of our family have protected your vehicles. Our business has evolved, and we're not stopping now. The next generation is here. Same family, same commitment, ready for the next generation of truck beds, rocker panels, trailers, bumpers, and running boards in all kinds of colors. Line X Regina, 1865 McCarra Street, the next generation of protective coatings.
Broadcasting from Century Studios in downtown Regina, Harvard Media presents The Sports Cage, where Saskatchewan comes to talk local sports. Brought to you by Nelson Homes, supplying home packages and RTMs for over 65 years. Be part of the show. Call 1-866-767-0620 or text 306-936-6262. The Sports Cage. Streaming at sportscage.com, our YouTube channel, and on the radio at 620 CKRM.
Brendan McGuire and Colson Schultz on the Friday Sports Cage. You can chime in on the Prairie Land Rentals text line. Whatever you need to rent to get the job done, Prairie Land Rentals probably has it. Also, an official Husqvarna snow thrower dealer. Deal with the owner. 600 Albert Street in Regina. All guests also appearing on the Western Pizza guest hotline. The Greek-style pizza that has become famous around the world, plus all the Greek and Canadian food you can't get enough of. Western Pizza, the local legend. A little bit later, we will check in with Dante de Caria. I wanted to talk a little bit about Western Canada Baseball League business with him. And the Regina Pats on their Christmas break within striking distance of fighting their way back into the postseason and what it looks like going down the stretch for the rest of the season. A lot of people picking the Pats to get in at the start of the season, and that remains to be seen. But right now, we talk some CFL. We haven't done much of that today, and we go out onto the Western Pizza guest hotline to be joined by another member of the Harvard Media family, John Hodge with 3 Down Nation. And John... I was going to say, Brady Oliveira is getting some big money as far as CFL players are concerned, or position players, I should say. I remember there was a lot of attention paid to Geno Lewis getting the contract with the Edmonton Elks a couple years back, and I think he cracked $320,000 if I'm not mistaken. And now everybody's making a big deal that Brady Oliveira is coming close to that kind of money. It's something that running backs haven't seen in the past. Is this really a big deal? I mean, he is a Canadian and he is a ratio breaker.
Yeah, I mean, running back is a position that traditionally, right, at least in the last 15, 20 years, has taken some big hits. You know, long gone are the days where running backs would get taken first overall in the NFL draft. And I think, honestly, the pendulum swung too far. I'm glad that it's swinging back the other way. I don't think we'll ever see running backs be considered the number one position organizationally again, and that's okay. But, I mean, Brady Oliveira is probably going to the Hall of Fame. Like, period. The guy, I reached out to CFL statistician Jeff Craver this week. Brady Oliveira has over 6,800 yards from scrimmage the last 4 years combined, and that is the 8th highest total in CFL history over a 4-year span. The only Canadian who's done more in a 4-year span is Andrew Harris, and some of the other players on the list are guys like Johnny Bright, guys like Mike Pringle, guys who are in the Hall of Fame and legends themselves. And I mean, when you look at what Brady's accomplished, he's only 28, right? He's got good years left in him. He claims to prep better than anybody else in the CFL when it comes to what he does in the gym, all the hard work that he puts in. And the guy is a 2-time rushing champion, 2-time All-CFL selection, 2-time Most Outstanding Canadian. And he's the only the 5th Canadian player ever win MOP. So if you're the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and you're going, okay, all of that is true, and he's also local, and he's the face of our franchise, and he spends the wintertime rescuing dogs. Like, I think you'd be really foolish to say, no, let's play hardball. Let's see if we can save $20,000, $30,000 against the cap, and really push. It's like, why? Somebody else is going to pay him more. People balked at his contract a couple of years ago when he signed for $230. Well, he reportedly received offers as high as $275, and that's when the cap was lower than it is now. So I don't think $290 is like a bargain for Brady, but I also don't think it's too much money for Brady. I really don't.
I think we learned the value of a ratio breaker where you have a Canadian at a non-Canadian or non-traditional Canadian position last year with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, with Tavon Campbell being a Canadian defensive back at a position that not many Canadians start in. And the same is probably true with the Blue Bombers. We've seen some good Canadian running backs, but not a whole ton of them. I wanted to ask you about the coincidence or connection that the Blue Bombers did so well with a Canadian running back named Andrew Harris, kept the train going to Brady Oliveira, and what their prospects are to keep that train going again to another intriguing Canadian running back, Matthew Peterson, who is a big star at the University of Alberta, and he too has shown promise. What do you think there's that capability for them to just keep the line moving the way they did from Harris to Oliveira?
Yeah, I mean, Brady's now under contract through 2028, so I think it's early to be looking at necessarily who's post Brady. I will say I asked Brady what he wants to accomplish left in his career, and he did acknowledge that, you know, he plays a position that generally has shorter careers than most, but also the way he plays the game could shorten his career as well. And I mean, the guy barely played in 2019. He broke his ankle. 2020, of course, was canceled. So he's basically got 5 years of wear and tear on his body. I think it's probably fair to speculate that after the next 3, he'll be done. But by that point, I mean, he could be a 10,000-yard guy. And once that comes to a close, yeah, it's possible that if it's Matthew Peterson, if it's someone else, like I'll say this, part of the reason a guy like Matthew Peterson, who was completely dominant, as you mentioned, Brendan, at the University of Alberta, a real home run hitter, a guy who can catch balls out of the backfield, really good straight line speed, but also shifty, can use power, like a versatile runner. One of the reasons those guys don't go until the 4th, 5th round of the draft is because most teams don't want him, right? They're going, well, we have an American starter. And, you know, if this is a guy like Thomas Bertrand-Hudon, who's great at this in Sask, can play special teams, right? And essentially be an extra linebacker in that regard, great. But if you're a guy who's a U Sports standout at running back with no special teams film, that's a bit tough, right? And if you go back to John Cornish, let's say, he's the guy who did not start his first year at the Calgary Stampeders. I don't think he started his second or third year either. He cut his teeth on special teams because they had Joffrey Reynolds, who was a Hall of Fame running back in his own right, ahead of Cornish on the depth chart. So I think it's possible the Bombers continue with Canadians there. I think it's wise to kind of try to make hay at a position where other teams are maybe, you know, they don't value it as much. But certainly that's been a part of Winnipeg's success over the last decade or so, is using a Canadian where most teams don't. And that, of course, means that you can use an extra American elsewhere. And Americans are just, I don't think American players are better than Canadian players, but American players are certainly more plentiful. They're easier to find.
So often I think many of us are guilty for thinking that running back is not a position you need to learn about. It's more of just you're either a great athlete or you're not. And that is 100% not true. A lot of the best running backs have the best vision. They understand how to find holes. They understand how to catch the football. There's so much more to it than that. And so maybe we shouldn't be surprised that someone like Brady Oliveira, who played behind Andrew Harris, has become maybe the best in the league in his own right, and maybe they could move that train along. Sometimes I just think that those physical positions, we underestimate how much they need to learn and how much technique is involved, and I suspect that has helped the Blue Bombers as well. Brady Oliveira, I keep running a clip on my phone of you talking, and I keep trying to turn it off. Brady, apparently Brady told you he thinks other teams would have paid him that money. Do you think they would have?
I do. Yeah. And I mean, I made this list. I read it out on the 3 Down Nation podcast today, which is if I'm making a list of like, not just good or not just impact players, but I'm talking about like Canadian players who can take over a game on offense. Obviously Nathan Rourke would be on the list, but if we're going with non-quarterbacks, to me, there's really only 3. Like dominant Canadian, I don't like the term skill position, but receivers or running backs. And that's Brady Oliveira, Tyson Philpott, and Sam Amelis. Those are the 3. I think there's other very good ones. I think Kian Schaefer-Baker is right in that next tier. Nick Dembski, Justin McInnes, Kevin Mattel, Dejon Brissett. Like I'm missing a few, but again, lots of guys in that second tier. But in terms of guys who can completely take over a game and dominate. We saw 10 catches from Sam Amelis in the Grey Cup. We saw it from Tyson Philpott, a 250-yard game earlier this year against Saskatchewan in Regina. And, of course, Brady Oliveira, multiple-time MOC and an MOP to boot. So if one of those top 3 guys is available, I think that multiple teams, this is just my opinion, but I suspect multiple teams would have offered more than what the Bombers offered. And therefore, I don't think you can consider it an overpay, right? Milt Stegall is famous for saying this. You're worth what somebody's willing to pay you. So there's probably instances in CFL history where one team has paid a guy a ton of money when no one else would have paid him. That's not the case here. 2 years ago, multiple teams offered higher percentages of the salary cap. Because remember, when Brady fielded those reported massive offers from BC and Hamilton, the cap was only around 5.5 million. Well, now it's over 6. So him making 290 right now is actually a smaller percentage of the cap than the 275, for instance, that Hamilton offered a couple of years ago, reportedly. So I think absolutely other teams would have made a play for Brady because he's dominant. I think he's the best player in the league at his position. And I think he's in his prime. Like, again, I don't know if he's going to be able to play into his mid-30s, but he's 28, right? And I think the Bombers are going to get good value over the next 3 years with him on the team.
How much did it help the Roughriders in their dealings with Sam Emilus going into free agency that the Alouettes spent so much money on another receiver, Tyson Philpott? Because remember, Sam's from Montreal. He says he grew up cheering for the Alouettes. Is that, we're hearing a lot in Major League Baseball about how the Blue Jays are getting very fortunate because some of the suitors for Bo Bichette are committing to other players. And that list of teams interested in Bichette is shrinking rapidly, raising the chance that he'll be back with the Blue Jays next year. Could the same be said, given the fact that it seems like the Alouettes are probably not in on Sam Emilus anymore?
Yeah, I think it helps both sides, right? I think it helps Sam Emilus in that he can point to the Tyson Philpott deal and say, hey, Tyson Philpott, great player, but has never had 1,000 yards. I have. He's never, or at least he didn't just set or come close to setting a Grey Cup record with 10 catches. And I have, right? So I think it helps Sam from a negotiation standpoint, but you're exactly right. If you're the Montreal Alouettes, I don't see how you can sink over $500,000 into 2 Canadian receivers. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you've just paid Tyson Philpott $250. And you've also, it's a long-term deal, right? I believe with guarantees later on. So Tyson Philpott is, I think, going to be the highest paid receiver in Montreal. They've also paid not like elite money, but they're paying good money for Tyler Snead and also for Austin Mack, both of whom, again, are under contract long-term in Montreal. So I doubt Sam Emilus is in the cards for Montreal. Now, will other teams be very, very happy to bid the Riders up for Sam Emilus's services? Absolutely. But there's also lots of other good Canadian receivers available. None as good as Emilus, but Kian Schaefer-Baker, right, is a difference maker, who is a pending free agent. I believe Deshaun Brissett, who just almost had his first 1,000-yard season, is a pending free agent. Like, there's other guys available. Nick Dembski got taken off the market today, but Nick Dembski's been in his hometown for almost a decade now. I don't think anybody thought he was leaving Winnipeg. But, I think it helps. And for the record, Sam Emilus and Tyson Philpott share the same agent. So this agent is somebody who obviously understands the Canadian receiver market and kind of set it in a way with Justin McInnes last year. He also reps Justin McInnes. And I think it's going to make a lot of money on Sam Emilus, whether or not he returns to Saskatchewan.
I know Jeremy O'Day was on this, or not Jeremy O'Day, sorry, let me back up. Glenn Suter was on this program not long ago. And I'm not saying Suter couldn't make a good GM like Jeremy O'Day or a GM like Jeremy O'Day, but he was talking about who his must re-signs were, or who's at the top of his wish list as far as Rough Rider pending free agents. I know that you know the pending free agent list inside and out around the league, not only who's a pending free agent for the Rough Riders, but other teams who the Rough Riders are considering. And in some cases, they might have somebody who's looks like a big priority to most of us, but Jeremy O'Day might be looking at another free agent from another team saying, well, I think I'd rather have this guy instead. I took the long-winded way around to asking you, who would be at the top of your wish list if you were the Rough Riders to re-sign pending free agents who are on the Saskatchewan side, who you think they need to bring back?
Well, my number one would be Sam Emilus. Again, Sam Emilus is not somebody you can go to the market and replace. Like, there's not another Sam Emilus out there. As mentioned, I've got my top 3 Canadian playmakers, and 2 of them just signed long-term extensions. So I think you've got to get Sam Emilus under contract. I think that's probably going to make it impossible to pay Kian Schaefer-Baker, and I don't think it's realistic for the Riders to bring them, both of them, back. The good news for the Riders is they've got a ton of other depth, right? You want to talk about a Joe, you want to talk about Del Duncan Busby, guys who are under contract, Tommy Neal, who signed an extension, right? There's a ton of Canadian depth there, which is why, honestly, the Riders don't need to bring both of their top paid Canadian receivers back. They've drafted well at that spot. They've brought in, I think, some really nice veteran Mitch Picton hanging around for a long time. Mitch Picton, very solid receiver, great example of that veteran depth that I'm talking about. So I think that would be the number one guy on offense. Defensively, I think it's Tevon Campbell. You mentioned it, Brendan, I think very astutely. He's one of two Canadians in the CFL who starts a corner. Like Adrian Green did it for a stint with Calgary this year at a high level, which is great. But Tyrell Ford does it at a super high level in Edmonton. And obviously Tevon Campbell did it at a super high level this year. I think he had 6 picks, and he can play the boundary. He can play the field. And yeah, he's into his 30s now, but he also didn't play a ton over his 5 NFL seasons. My point is for a DB of his age, I think he's got relatively more tread on the tire than other guys his age. So I think he's somebody who could play several more years. And I think the Riders got really, really great value on his contract for 2025. He'll, I'm sure, be looking for a raise for 2026, and he's earned it. And again, a perfect example of a guy who there's nobody else like him on the market, right? If you're looking for an edge rusher, if you're looking for a linebacker, there are other positions where you can find guys who are available and whatever. But that Canadian passport for like an all-star, rock star defensive back, there's nobody else out there. So I think you got to pay Tevon Campbell for that reason.
I just have to say you're doing a great Darth Vader imitation, and I'm loving every second of it with that video.
Yeah, my lighting just gave out, so hopefully that's not a problem.
That's okay. I'm a disaster with my cell phone. I have to come in every time I do this program. There's no way around it. You did touch on something that I wanted to elaborate on a little bit. I feel like in a lot of ways the model for some positions, maybe not so much at defensive back like with Tevon Campbell, but with quarterbacks especially, has changed a little bit in that Trevor Harris has had a really good career in his 30s and pushing 40, and that's okay because he didn't play much in his 20s. Henry Burris didn't take a lot of snaps in his 20s either, and he lasted till he was 41. He was a Grey Cup MVP at age 41. Do you think that sometimes we undervalue players because of age and don't take enough consideration into the fact that, hey, they were in the NFL or they were backup or whatever the case may be, and they have a lot more tread still left on the tire because there were 3-4 years where they were inactive and they should be able to go a little bit longer than another guy who was a starter when he was 21, 22?
I absolutely think that's the thing, but the other factor to me is the style of play, right? Trevor Harris plays the perfect style for an aging quarterback. He moves a little bit, can buy time, but he's not somebody who's going to try to rush for 75 or 80 yards a game. He's somebody who likes to stand in the pocket and get rid of the ball extremely quickly, right? He is a lot more Danny McManus than he is Damon Allen, to use a couple of throwback references I'm sure you'll love, Brendan. And that to me is what has allowed him to be so successful late in his career. Yes, I think less tread on the tire, or less wear on the tire, I should say, is a good thing, and that has helped him. But it also comes down to style of play. If you're, for example, a Brady Oliveira who relies on being an extremely bruising physical running back, even if he didn't have a ton of reps early in his career, I still don't think he's playing till 38. Can he play till 32? Probably. He's only 28 now. But is he going to play another 10 years? No. Whereas if you're somebody like Trevor Harris, who doesn't take a lot of hits, who's never relied on his legs, who has always gotten rid of the ball quickly and can be very accurate, yes. And I think that depends. If you're a receiver whose best faraway skill set is taking the top off a defense with 4.3 speed, yeah, you're probably not going to have a super long career. But if you're an Andy Fantuz, let's say, who's never been a burner, but the thing you do best is finding spots in zone coverage and making every single catch, then yeah, you're somebody who I think is going to have a lot of success even later in your career when other guys might be done.
That's why I wonder how bad this Patrick Mahomes injury in the NFL could be, because I feel like he's a guy who relies a lot on his shiftiness, and he's 30 years old, and he might not come back till he's 31, closer to 32, but we will see. I wanted to get your take on Darnell Sankey, a really good linebacker here in Saskatchewan a few years ago, and he's done well as a player pretty well everywhere he's gone. Signing with the BC Lions today, I know there are questions about how much tread he has left on the tire. How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sankey plays heavy, right, for an NFL or for a CFL linebacker. He's really got an NFL body. 245, 250 pounds. I think that's one way that you can extend your career a little bit, is trying to shed weight. You know, a guy like Julian Hauser shed some weight after kind of a down year with the Stampeders in 2024. Lo and behold, he's the East Division's nominee for most outstanding defensive player in 2025 with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So I do think he's an upgrade for that team. Micah Awe, you know, super physical, you know, made a ton of tackles in 2025, but not a guy who makes a lot of plays. You know, it's a lot of cleanup tackles. He doesn't do a lot of the things that really, really impact the game. Forced fumbles, interceptions, pass knockdowns. And I think Darnell Sankey is somebody who might not have the biggest range as a linebacker. Again, he's a big-bodied, thick, almost four-down style linebacker, but I think he's a better player than Micah Awe. So I think it's a really good fit. That was a position that, to me, the Lions needed to improve at, and they've done that right at middle linebacker.
I'm sorry I've made this very heavy on the Alouettes, which I'm not that interested in. I don't suspect a lot of our listeners on. But I do wonder if there's maybe a bit of a connection there. Danny Machocha switching that position to a Canadian spot and getting rid of Sankey, and he seems to be playing hardball with their Canadian defensive back, Marc-Antoine Dequoy, where he's made comments, well, we'll see where that goes. Do you wonder if maybe the decision to switch to a Canadian at that spot might have as much to do with negotiating, posturing with Dequoy, who probably thinks he has a lot of value being the proud Quebecois, et cetera, et cetera?
It's possible, but I don't think that the Alouettes would look to go American at safety, even if Dequoy didn't come back. Arthur Hamlin, mid-round pick of theirs in 2024, started a handful of games in 2025. I thought looked great. And the Alouettes also got Nate Boschman, who was the top defensive player in all of youth sports football with the Calgary Dinos a couple of years back and just finished his rookie year. So I think their depth there is great. I think the bigger reason for the change in Montreal is they took Tyrell Richards with the first overall pick in 2022. He's been great for them on teams after a couple of injury-plagued seasons to start his career. I think he's ready for a bigger role on defense. And then Jeffrey Canton-Arcou, who is their first-round pick out of Memphis in 2024, he's going into a contract year next year if they don't extend him. And if he goes into a contract year and ends up playing a bunch of games, I mean, if people decide this is an all-star linebacker who's also Canadian, someone's going to put $250,000 on the table for him. It's not impossible. So I think the Alouettes were smart. They were proactive. They said, okay, what can we do right now that'll get more money into Canton-Arcou's pocket for 2026 when he'd otherwise be on his rookie deal? But that will give us security to ensure he's around for 2027. And by giving him that money, I think you have to go, okay, well, if we're giving him a raise, he's got to start. We're not going to have a backup who's more expensive than the starter in front of him. So I think that was what precipitated. But I do think Marc-Antoine Dequoy is a really interesting one. Brendan, Greg Quick, who spent the last many years in Montreal, is now going to be the defensive coordinator in Toronto. You wonder if you know, Marc-Antoine Dequoy could be playing for another team. I know he's been with Danny Machocha basically since their days together at University of Montreal. It's hard to imagine him in something other than an Alouettes jersey, but this is the CFL and crazier things have happened.
Maybe add a little more spice to the rivalry that the Argos have with all those Eastern teams. Great job as our Harvard media capologist in the CFL, John Hodge. And I just want to say Merry Christmas to you and your family, and we will talk to you in the new year. And I just want to end this interview by saying, Hodge, I am your father.
Thanks. Sorry my lighting crapped out. Well, hopefully we're all good. Thanks, B-Mac. All best to you and your family as well. Thank you.
Okay, that is Three Down Nation's John Hodge joining us on the Western Pizza guest hotline. The Greek-style pizza that has become famous around the world, plus all the Greek and Canadian food you can't get enough of. Western Pizza, the local legend. Dante de Caria, still ahead here in Hour 3 of the Sports Cage on the YouTube channel and on the radio, the almighty 620 CKRM.
Since 1949, Nelson Homes has been providing you one-stop shopping for ready-to-move homes, panelized packages, and on-site builds. Nelson Homes' team of authorized dealers all over Saskatchewan would be happy to help you turn your dream home into a reality. In the Saskatoon area, call Kurt at Canadian Timber Homes or call 1-800-661-6534 for more information. Nelson Homes, trusted quality and service since 1949.
It's time for the Sports Ticker, brought to you by Steelcraft Doors Regina, made in Western Canada for Western Canadians.
Okay, so on this Sports Ticker thing, Western Hockey League tonight, Kelowna Rockets visiting the Prince Albert Raiders. Their Christmas break hasn't started yet. SJHL, Estevan Bruins at Yorkton Terriers, Melville Millionaires at Weyburn Red Wings, Nipawin Hawks visiting the Melfort Mustangs, Flin Flon at LaRange, and the Warman Wolverines visiting the Humboldt Broncos. Sounds like it's rivalry night in the SJHL. Some Junior B tonight, close to home for Junior Hockey League. Regina Capitals there in Mooseman to play the Steelhawks, Prince Albert Timberjacks at Martinsville Chiefs, and the Saskatoon Royals at Carrot River Thunder. Also, some midget AAA, midget AAA, there we go. Tisdale Trojans at Saskatoon Blazers, and on the female side, it's the Saskatoon Stars at the Regina Rebels. Lots of curling happening in Saskatoon at the Grand Slam. Hearing Life Canadian Open. Some of the top teams in the world are in Saskatoon for this event that runs through Sunday. And there's still one more draw to be played tonight. Draw 3 is wrapping up. The complete schedule and results can be found at www.thegrandslamofcurling.com. 2 NHL games tonight. My Canucks visiting the New York Islanders and the Winnipeg Jets at Colorado Avalanche. Don't forget to check out the sportscage.com poll. Which position group do you think the Saskatchewan Roughriders should focus on re-signing? Vote at sportscage.com. Sure sounded like Hodge's vote was for Sam Emelis. What do you think? Go and take the poll. We'll be back with Dante de Caria next on the Voice of Saskatchewan, 620 CKRM.
If you have a garage door that's running a little rough, you should really have Busy Bee Doors, the garage door specialists, come out and repair it. Or it may need to be replaced altogether. Yeah, just call Busy Bee Doors, the local experts who have been in the business for many, many years, because they can fix or replace any commercial or garage door.
Honey, calling Busy Bee.
Good idea. Busy Bee Doors, the garage door specialists.
Text CKRM 306-936-6262 for Prairie Land Rentals. Renting heaters, skid steers, and most power tools for all those winter jobs. And your official Husqvarna snow thrower dealer. Prairie Land Rentals, 600 Albert Street, where you deal with the owner. Sportscage is live streaming from our Century Studios in downtown Regina. Watch now at sportscage.com and our YouTube channel. Be part of the show by texting 306-936-6262. 620 CKRM.
Well, I just cannot thank Colson Schultz enough for holding my hand and babying me through this entire process. I have guest hosted a copious amount of Sports Cage episodes over the year, but never before with this great TV setup. And it's a good reminder of why Dad always said I had a face for radio. But what it's like grinding your way through 3 hours with these lights in your face. I remember Bob McCown would always wear these shades that looked so tacky, and he said years later it wasn't to look cool. It was because of all the lights. And I thought it was just some phony baloney excuse, but I think it's true. I can totally see what he was talking about. But it's a beautiful looking studio in here, and I'm thrilled to be here and to do it. And it's a lot better than a lot of the other stupid things that we see on YouTube. I feel like I was listening to Jeff Perlman, who's one of my favorite authors, talking about how ESPN has deteriorated. Like they've gotten rid of a lot of their reporters, and he says all we're left with is some of this other drivel and Stephen A. Smith. And look, I like Stephen A. Smith just fine. But I think that we get a little more of Stephen A. than we need. It's a little bit overkill for all the talking heads that they do during the day on ESPN. But I digress. Okay, let's go to our next guest. Because he knows no short sentences. He is not only the play-by-play voice and communications guy with the Regina Pats, but he's also hammering out press releases for the Regina Red Sox. Dante Caria on the Western Pizza guest line. You are in Ottawa. You're back home for the Christmas break?
Yes, I am, Brendan. Thank you so much for having me. I'm currently in Ottawa. I was just hanging out with some of my friends today. Nice to see some old pals.
Oh, good. Good for you. You know what? I once upon a time was you, but I was opposite of you because you're an Ontario guy doing junior hockey in Saskatchewan. I was a Saskatchewan guy doing junior hockey in Ontario. And I remember I had the Christmas break and I had no time to travel back. I thought about going home to Regina, but more importantly, I had no money. So it sounds like play-by-play guys at the junior level are living large. Sounds like life has gotten a lot better in the last 20 years.
But the last month has been a little bit tough for me. Currently without a vehicle, it seems like everybody in Regina already knows that. But obviously my mom helps me with the flights and stuff like that. So I have to thank her or else I can't come to Ottawa. But to say that I'm a rich man walking would be a fool to say.
Oh, come on. I've seen your house. Hey, are you are there any Senators games that you get to check out while you're at home?
Okay, so one of the reasons why I flew to Ottawa was because, and this was obviously months ago, like back in October when I booked the ticket, but I'm going to be flying to Toronto to spend the Christmas with some of my other family with my mom in a couple days. So I flew to Ottawa to specifically watch the Chicago Blackhawks play the Ottawa Senators tomorrow, and to spend time and obviously catch up with Connor Bedard. He got hurt, obviously, on Friday in St. Louis, so he's not currently in Ottawa, so I don't have the chance to see him. That was the reason why I actually flew into Ottawa specifically for today. Unfortunately, I'm not going to the Sens game anymore.
So you completely whiffed on your trip home to Ottawa. You had big plans and it totally fell apart on you.
It fell apart, but freak accident with 0.8 seconds left on the clock. Braden Chen, a good Saskatchewan boy up in Saskatoon there, unfortunately took out our boy Bedsy.
Well, my heart is bleeding for you, but you get some time back home, and I feel bad for Connor. Even worse for you, because I'm sure you were looking forward to this encounter more than he was, dare I suggest. But
no, I think you're right about that.
Well, sorry that it didn't work out. Speaking of whiffing on things, actually, I got to show you this. So Buddy showed me this on Marketplace the other day. This sweet lid, I picked it up for $15, and it's an old retro 1980 1980s Regina Pats lid, and you can see it here on the YouTube feed. Have you ever seen a better buy for $15? Have you ever had better value for a $15 purchase than this sweet mug?
No, because I have a sweet tooth. I tend to spend a little bit more money than $15. I'm not very good when it comes to saying no to certain items. When I was down in Seattle on the U.S. trip with the Pats, I went to see the Everett Aquasox team store, went to go see the stadium there, which is the high A affiliate of the Seattle Mariners, and ended up buying a whole bunch of stuff from the team store. So I'm not very good with this kind of stuff. So that is a great deal.
Good for you. You know, I see all these people, they always want like Connor McDavid jerseys, or they want a Tom Brady jersey. And I have no interest in any of it because there's a million of them out there. And the more that they're out there, the less valuable they are. I collect CFL jerseys. I've got a Vince Ferragamo Montreal Alouettes jersey. I've got a Tom Burgess silver Ottawa Roughriders with the Flaming R's. They only had that in the early 90s when things were really Bush League in the CFL. That's interesting. All this other stuff is just, who cares? Like, it's like people trying to fit in. And the best advice that I ever got from my old man was everybody's trying to fit in, and nobody ever made it anywhere in life trying to do that. Stand out, have your own identity, and be your own person. That's the wisdom I'm going to give you before your Christmas break. Hey, listen, I wanted to talk to you about a few things. First of all, I completely whiffed on my interview with Maddax Schultz, and I didn't ask him about his first goal. I remember when Connor Bedard was here, and the first thing that really got my attention was how when he was on the ice you knew it, whether he had points or not, just the way things changed on the ice. Now, that was a little different. He was in his 17-year-old year, and he had been around for a while. What do you notice the most about the impact a young Maddax Schultz has when he's on the ice with the Regina Pats?
Well, I have to ask you this first, Brendan. Are you going to ask me about Liam Pugh's impact as well after?
Yes. I know. They're a package deal. Yeah.
It's a package deal, but I really like Liam. I think he's really coming on. I think that this kid has got an amazing ceiling. Like, I think Liam Pugh is the real deal. Everybody wants to talk about Maddax Schultz. Well, how about Liam Pugh? Seriously, right? Okay, I'll answer your first question, Brendan. Maddax Schultz. The first thing that I've noticed is that he doesn't cheat the game. He's very smart defensively. And yes, fans might see, well, he turned the puck over here, or he turned the puck over there. Turnovers are going to happen all the time. Turnovers are going to happen when you're 15 years old playing against 19 and 20-year-olds, especially against a very good Prince Albert Raiders team. Everybody turns the puck over. So do 20-year-olds in the Western Hockey League. But Maddax Schultz stays below the puck. He stops on pucks, he plays the right way, and he doesn't cheat. That's what excites me the most about his game. But Liam Pugh, his shot is pro. His skill is unbelievable. He made a play against Prince Albert the other day where he lifted the defender's stick as he was back skating into his own zone, picked it up, and fired a quick shot that almost ended up in the back of the net. He's a really talented player. The great thing about both of those players, to be honest with you, Brendan, is they're bigger learners than they are, I guess, in terms of their skill on the ice. They don't think they know everything. These two guys are sponges. They take everything in. They ask questions, good questions. And obviously, the old saying is never a bad question. But these two guys ask great questions on the bench, from what I understand from talking to the coaching staff. That's the great thing about these two players. But Liam Pugh, you look at his size, I love his ceiling. I think that he's going to be the better scorer. Maddax Schultz is probably going to be the better 200-foot complete player.
Interesting. I wanted to know, are they both eligible to play the rest of the year? I know that they both have eligibility, or Maddax does, to play half a season. Has he? Okay, so they could. Is that the plan?
Well,
are they both going to play every game?
Brendan.
Right. So are they?
Maddax has only played 11 games.
So can he play the rest of the season? That's what I'm asking. Does he have to sit out any more games from an eligibility standpoint?
They both do, but they're both getting ready for the Circle K Classic, which is the biggest midseason U18 tournament in all of North America, and that is going to get underway just after the Christmas break. So those guys, sadly enough, don't really get a Christmas break. It's not an easy schedule for these two kids. They're practicing with the Pac Canadians, getting ready for this tournament.
One thing I talked with Maddax a lot during our chat is, how do you balance all this? Like, we forget that they're just kids. They are just kids. And they have schoolwork, and they have a very demanding schedule with their midget team. And they're playing in the Western Hockey League, which has a pretty demanding schedule in and of its own right. Probably the worst travel schedule, bussing around, than just about any league, baseball, hockey, anywhere in North America. Do you ever wonder how they juggle it all?
I don't. I think it's very hard. I think you'll see them start to miss some games with both the Pac Canadians and the Regina Pats, obviously, in the second half of the season, because it's impossible for both of those players to play every single game for both the Pats and the Pac Canadians in the second half, not just from a statistical standpoint as far as their eligibility goes, but also for a fatigue factor as well. And given that the Pac Canadians are going to be hosting Western Regionals as well, which is another factor that plays into things. But I think it's extremely taxing. For example, I could look at last Monday, just because I wasn't really at the rink earlier this week, but they practiced with the Pats earlier in the day, went to school, and then went in practice with the Regina Pac Canadians that day as well. Now, that was by choice, by the way. They wanted to practice for a second time that day with the Regina Pac Canadians. So that was a decision that they made, but I can't imagine that it's very easy at all. I can't imagine what it would be like as a young guy, let alone an adult, practicing more than once a day.
I had no idea that his Maddax's parents were figure skaters. How much do you think that helped him become the player he is today at such a young age?
Well, first and foremost, Dave and Vicky Schultz help every player skate in all of the community of Regina. They are tremendous skating coaches, and they're both figure skaters. I think his edge work obviously is due to the fact that he trained so much with his dad and his mom since he's been a little kid. And his sister is a very good figure skater as well, by the way. You kind of hear of these stories. Now, obviously, it was beneficial to have two parents that did it, but you hear about these stories where guys that want to improve on their skating, their edge work, and stuff like that will go to a figure skating coach, and it's helped Maddax tremendously because he just kind of glides on the ice. It's just so seamless. It's like watching Reese Hamilton skate as well. Those guys are just natural at it, and I think it's helped him a lot.
So we're excited about these two young players. And I mentioned earlier that for years I would hear whoever the voice of the Pats was come on here. And especially I'm going back to like the Parker era after they hosted the second Memorial Cup that was here in 2001. And there was about a 4 or 5 year wilderness where there was just nothing to get excited about. And it seemed like they were trying to manufacture. And I felt like if I was on the interview, I would say, this team sucks. Let's talk about something else. That's not the situation that you have today. They are on the outside looking in at the Christmas break, but within striking distance of getting into a playoff position. And I hear from people who actually know a thing or two about the WHL, which I do not, say that this team could be dangerous over the second half. So I'm going to ask you, Dante to Caria, what is the biggest reason, aside from seeing these two young players that we talked about, for anyone to get excited about the Pats in January, February, and March?
Well, it's a great question. I think it's going to come down to what Dale Durkach and assistant general manager Tristan Fry do at the January 9 trade deadline, because they did trade their top scorer in Julian Mays to the Calgary Hitmen in exchange for 2 third-round picks, in which Dale Durkach said in his quote that was in the press release, he is looking to parlay into a future top 6 player. So I imagine that they're going to be looking for a 2008 or 2007 born forward, so a 17 or 18-year-old player that can be a productive 19-year-old next year with Maddax and Liam at 16, and then potentially be around with the Pats at 20 years old when Maddax and Liam are 17 years old. So the team is looking for, I think personally, a 2008 born player. So that's something to be excited about. What does the team do at the trade deadline? Because really they have made some small additions. Hutchison, obviously, to kind of, bridge the gap with Tabashnik in net and picking up a 20-year-old defenseman in Ryland Pierce. But Dale Durkach and Tristan Fry haven't necessarily added a big-time player yet since they've come onto the scene. They've subtracted a little bit. They've added, some complementary pieces to their roster, but they haven't added a big player, and they do have lots of draft capital. So expect the Regina Pats to make a big move ahead of the January 9th trade deadline, or potentially when the team comes back from the Christmas break, because they have so much draft capital, too much draft capital, they can't use it to draft. And I think teams understand this. So teams are calling and saying, hey, we're looking to sell off some pieces. How can we get a second-round pick this year? How can we get a third-round pick next year? And so I think the cards and the ball is in the Regina Pats court right now. I truly believe that. I mean, the team has 3 second-round picks and 3 third-round picks in this year's WHL prospects draft. They can't use all of those picks, right? Generally speaking, because you only have 50 players allowed on your list, you only usually take 8 guys in a single WHL prospects draft, maybe even 7. So that's one thing to be excited about. The second thing is the team is currently tied for 8th in the Eastern Conference standings the last time I looked, and that was obviously last night. So I do potentially see this team going on a big run in the second half of the season. They're right in there. They're 11, 17, 2-1 on the season. They've got 26 points. They're, trying to climb their way up the standings. If you look at the bottom half of the Eastern Conference standings right now, and I don't mean this as a slight to any of the teams, Brendan, but the Eastern Conference is really weak as far as there were a ton of teams last year that went for it, that sold off pieces. Calgary's still, generally, competitive, in the mid or top half of the Eastern Conference. But other than that, everybody's beatable, right? And I'm not saying Medicine Hat or Prince Albert are not beatable. I mean, Regina just beat them the other night 5-4. But you look at Moose Jaw, right? They lose Lyndon Lakovich for the remainder of the season. What are they going to do at the trade deadline? They're currently sitting in 7th. And then it's a long jam for 8 with Red Deer, Lethbridge, Regina, and don't count out the Swift Current Broncos just yet. So it's going to be very exciting down the stretch because there are a lot of teams that are currently struggling. So if the Regina Pats come out of the gate in the second half of the season the way they probably should and what they expect, you could see this team in a playoff spot, maybe as high as 6th in the Eastern Conference standings.
I feel like they could do some damage, too, if they do get in a first-round series. Listen, we're tight for time. I needed to ask you. Every time I see your name come on my email inbox, I assume it's something about the Pats. I've been seeing these Red Sox press releases. How has your life changed now with the blending of the Pats and the Red Sox ownership?
I guess up until last week, hasn't changed too much, to be quite honest with you. But, the Pats do own the Regina Red Sox as well. Obviously, Queen City Sports and Entertainment Group with Sean Semple. So I've had to do a little bit of work for both as they finalize, the staff for the Red Sox and stuff like that. So hasn't changed too much, to be quite honest with you, Brendan. But I guess I will comment. Super excited to see Rai Pathakos back as the field manager of the Regina Red Sox. Super exciting to have him back. I know he's got big plans. He's ready to lead this team to another championship. Rai and I have a good relationship. We talk all the time, talk about baseball. He's a baseball lifer, and I'm a young guy that will be a baseball lifer. I'll never be away from the sport. It's my favorite sport. It's what I love. So I've got a lot of faith in the Red Sox, and hopefully they can repeat this year.
Let's get that conversation going now of getting Red Sox on CKRM, like a weekly broadcast. Just add it to the stable. We're the sports superstation. We got the Riders, we got the Rams, we got the Pats. We'll do a Red Sox game together on the radio. Are you with me?
Anytime, man. Anytime. I'll do a broadcast with you anytime. We've never done a broadcast together. I'm quite upset about that still.
Me too. I want to make this happen. We'll bring in Colson. We'll get jackets. We'll get CKRM jackets. We'll dress it up.
Yeah.
Listen.
Hey, guess what? I was going to buy an Expos hat today, and I didn't, but I thought of you when I was holding it.
Thanks. I'm touched. That's all I need to hear. And I'm glad that you didn't waste your money on it either. And listen, I know you're disappointed you don't get to see Connor. Use this time to hang out with your mother, okay? Someday you'll be glad you did. Go enjoy the holidays, and we'll see you in the new year.
All right, sounds good. And my friends are currently watching the stream right now, and just letting them know I'll be there soon.
Okay, good. Glad that you had to communicate through us to get to them. You had to route it 3,000 miles away. That is Dante Caria, the play-by-play voice of the Regina Pats. And among other things, he issues press releases for the Pats and also for the Regina Red Sox, Western Canada Baseball League squad as well. Back to wrap when we come back. You are watching and listening to the Sports Cage on the YouTube channel and on the almighty 620 CKRM.
Stay in the know about what's happening in Regina. Get the latest news and events delivered right to your inbox with the Regina Today newsletter. Whether you're looking for local happenings, must-visit spots, or the latest in local news, we've got you covered. Sign up today and get Regina's best stories all in one place. Text NEWS to 306-936-6262, and we'll send the link right to your phone. It's free, it's easy, and it's all about Regina. Sign up for the Regina Today newsletter from sasktoday.ca.
Get it hot, get it fast, Western Pizza.
You hear those jingle bells? That means the holiday season is on its way. So it's time to start planning your work or family holiday parties. Leave the cooking to Western Pizza and enjoy all your Western Pizza favorites this holiday season. Call your local Western Pizza about catering or hosting your holiday get-together today. Western Pizza gift cards, saving holiday gift exchanges since 1976.
Since 1949, Nelson Homes has been providing you one-stop shopping for ready-to-move homes, panelized packages, and on-site builds. Nelson Homes' team of authorized dealers all over Saskatchewan would be happy to help you turn your dream home into a reality. In the Saskatoon area, call Kurt at Canadian Timber Homes or call 1-800-661-6534 for more information. Nelson Homes, trusted quality and service since 1949.
The 620 CKRM Country Corner is brought to you by Glasser's TV in Moosomin, your SaskTel authorized dealer, and Foster's Audio Video in Carlisle. Get the newest cell phone today with an amazing SaskTel rate plan.
Bring in the new year with the Bromantics at Danceland at Manitou Beach, December 31st. Cocktails start at 6, supper at 7, followed by the show at 8:30. Get your tickets at danceland.ca. Take in a great night of entertainment for the whole family with the world-famous Harlem Globetrotters, Tuesday, January 6th at the Brandt Center in Regina, Ticketmaster.ca. And the Sask Young Egg Proudly Egg Conference is coming up February 5th at the Western Development Museum in Saskatoon. Join young farmers and egg professionals from across the province for a day of connection and learning. Early bird ticket deadline January 9th. Full details at saskyoungegg.ca.
For more information, visit 620ckrm.com. Saskatchewan, it's time to talk sports. Sportscage is on the air. Be part of the show. Call 936-6262 or toll free 1-866-767-0620. And we're always online at sportscage.com. 620 CKRM.
Okay, Brendan McGuire and Colson Schultz on the Friday Sports Cage for Nelson Holmes. Time for the sprinkle of the day for Sports Select. Getting in on more of the sports action you want is as easy as playing at sportsselect.com. Simply make your picks online, generate your QR code, and lock in your bet at your local lotto spot retailer. Every bet is 100% legal with the chance of winning cash in hand. Sports Select, when you're ready to play, bet on the original, must be 18 plus to play. Play responsibly. Okay, so the game that we picked, my Canucks are on Long Island. That game's going to start, well, right away. So you don't have a lot of time to lock in your bet, but you can. There's a couple. We wanted to pick the point spread. The Islanders are favored by, 0.5. So basically, I'm saying just pick the Islanders on the point spread. They should be able to win. I expect the Canucks will be reeling at least for a little while since the trade, and it might take them a little while to get their you-know-what together. And also on the over-under, 5.5, and we thought, let's roll with the over. The Canucks are probably going to struggle a little bit defensively while they go into this new world. And playing on Long Island, I feel like the Islanders are due for a big night offensively. And I think overall, the two teams should be able to combine for at least 6 goals. And that's why I'm saying take the over-under. And over-under is not really that sexy to bet on, and yet I've seen some of the most skilled bettors who actually make money and even get kicked off of some of those offshore betting sites because they make so much money. They focus on those two things, the point spread and the over-under. That's probably the easiest thing to predict. A lot of advice I've heard is don't focus so much on parlays, which is probably why in the 5 years or so that I was on one of those betting apps that I won't mention because they don't sponsor us. And I think I ended up losing like $300. I got lots of good entertainment, but I was always focusing on these parlays. So maybe that should tell you something, the over-under and the point spread. So those are our picks. Go against my Canucks. What else is new? Not much has changed. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Special thanks to all of our guests throughout the program, and huge thanks to Colson Schultz. We did it. I thought it might blow up, but somehow we made it through the 3 hours.
We made it.
And we're still breathing. And special thanks to the listeners and the people who text in and who comment on the chat. If you weren't there, then we couldn't be here. I think one of my favorite parts of the show was talking with Dante and about the Pats, because this is the time of year when some of us are so heavily ensconced into Canadian football and we watch some of the NFL, but gradually our focus shifts to the Pats, and I'm really excited over what's going to happen in the second half of the year, not only to see what these two young players can do, but see if the Pats can actually do some damage. It's been a long time around here since we've had much to get excited about with the Pats late in the season. I think that could change this year.
We'll see.
And that's it.
Exciting.
And that's it. Okay. Well, we will wrap things up. I want to thank everybody for helping out on the cage one more time. And that's it. You've been listening to the Sports Cage Friday edition on the almighty 620 CKRM. Good night, everybody.
We are 620 CKRM Regina, a Harvard media station.
It's 6 o'clock. Good evening. From the sasktoday.ca newsroom, here's your 620 CKRM news. A worker who died in an underground potash mine in Saskatchewan this week has been identified as a loving father and active union member. Unifor says Tyrone McLeod was a mine operator at the Mosaic Company's K3 mine near Esterhazy. The 41-year-old leaves behind a wife and 2 daughters. The union says the province's Ministry of Labour Relations and Workplace Safety is investigating the death, and Unifor is seeking to be part of the process. The city of Regina has opened most of its outdoor skating rinks for the season, giving residents access to free skating across the community. 40 rinks are now available, including the popular Victoria Park